score. Texas Tech was a 10.5-point favorite, and they doubled the spread. It's the one thing BYU had to avoid. As we talked about all of last week, there are tremendous amounts of metrics, advanced metrics, that the College Football Playoff Committee uses as it pertains to their rankings. And these advanced metrics continue just not to like BYU, even though BYU is 8-1. When you look at the S&P Plus right now, BYU is at number 22, just behind Washington and ahead of Illinois. They're behind Penn State, who's 3-6 in the S&P Plus. Moving over to the College Football Power Index, BYU falls 3 spots to number 17, just behind Vanderbilt and ahead of Michigan. Tomorrow's rankings are the only thing that matters. The AP ranking for Brigham Young down 4 spots to 12. Utah jumps up a couple of spots, even though they were idle, to number 2. And it's probably time just to say it. We said it last week. Texas Tech is the class of the conference, and they've earned the right as a result of being the one team of the 3 where there isn't any variance between rankings and metrics. The metrics like Texas Tech, the rankings like Texas Tech, and obviously head-to-head is what it is. They beat both BYU and Utah handily, quite frankly. Even though that Utah game was a rock fight for about 3+ quarters, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, final score is the final score. And Texas Tech, as I said last week, I think they stamped their ticket not just to Arlington, but probably the college football playoff. They close with 2 of the, I would say, 3 worst teams in the conference. They get UCF at home coming up. Then they'll close at West Virginia. So chances are Tech is going to end 11-1 and 8-1 in conference play. Plenty to play for BYU. Winnable games on the schedule. We'll get into it. And then we'll talk about, of course, what Utah needs to do against Baylor coming up on Saturday and the pathway for Utah into either the Big 12 championship game or the college football playoff altogether. Of course, we'll make some time to talk about some other things. College basketball is in full swing, so Joe Cravens is going to roll by live in studio. Excited to catch up with Joe. Scott Mitchell, as he typically does every single Monday, will join us to talk Utes and Big 12 and BYU and football as a whole. Smitty, our guy Richard Smith, will also be in studio. Then, as I said earlier, we will bring you the press conference from the head ball coach himself, Kyle Whittingham. In case you missed it earlier, during the 5 o'clock hour, we'll say goodnight for Monday Night Football. It's a big one tonight. Decent slate of NFL games, I'd say. Some interesting performances, certainly. But the Eagles and the Packers will wrap up your Week 10 slate of pro football at Lambeau in Green Bay. A little Jordan Love action tonight. So a big one between 2 really good teams, Eagles and Packers. So we'll have that for you when we say goodnight on the radio show today, just after 6 o'clock. So Joe Craven, Scott Mitchell, Richard Smith, Coach Witt, me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. That guy, Porter Larson, back in the saddle. Good to see you, young man. How was your weekend? Back at you. Doing well. Good football weekend. Good weekend at home, visiting some folks, and back at it here on a Monday. I gotta say, there's a lot of college football stuff that I want to get to that I kind of missed out on, some of the CFP conversation and the rankings that you look at the path ahead for the Big 12. Fans of all of these teams should be really excited about. So I'm sure, in addition to some hoops with Joe and the friends today, we'll talk a lot of college football. Yeah, great college football weekend. A lot of very interesting results. Oregon, a gritty win at Iowa. They needed that one. So a lot of good games, not just in the Big 12. Vanderbilt needed overtime to survive Auburn. And Wisconsin was able to get Washington, which is bad news for Oregon. We'll talk about that. But, of course, Big 12 top of mind right now. Utah's to win out. They also need some help. All right, our first guest today will be Joe Cravens. Do a little basketball with Joe today. But before Joe stops by, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
You guys already know Prize Picks is the best way to win cash on football. Whether you are a Broncos fan, a Raiders fan, or sadly if you're a Jets fan, big hug. Best place to win cash on football. But basketball is back. Pro basketball is here. So whether it's the Jazz or the Lakers or the Warriors or the Knicks, Prize Picks also the best place to win cash on hoops. They're offering stacks now. Utilize that over the weekend. Won a little cash on Lowry Marketing against the T-Wolves. That game was not close. Timberwolves won by a lot. But stacks means you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you want to pick more on Lowry's rebounds, blocks, and 3-point shots made, stuff like that, really easy to do. You can do it on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app. Copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. You can hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. If you follow me and copy my picks and we lose, do not send me mean direct messages. I do not need that in my life. But that's an option that you have on Prize Picks. Step number 1, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, Utah football is back at it this week after a bye week. Coach Witt addressed the media earlier today. Set your alarm for just after 5 o'clock. We'll let you hear from the head ball coach of the Utes. And look, I say this every year. If you are a fan of a college football team and you get to mid-November with hope still alive, that is a win every single year. Because there are so many programs after stubbing their toe over the first couple of weeks of the season that essentially don't have anything to play for the rest of the way. Well, Utah football very much still does. BYU football very much still does. Utah State got a win over the weekend. They're trying to qualify for a bowl under Bronco Mendenhall in his first year, which would be a win. But it is the Baylor Bears in Waco. Baylor's one of those teams in the Big 12 where they're hard to kind of pin down. They feel like one of 5 or 6 teams like squarely in the middle. Utah is a very healthy favorite, even though they're on the road. As of now, the line actually has not moved from its opening. It opened up over the weekend. Utah favored 9.5. The only sports book right now that has movement is ESPN Bet, that I think is about to go out of business. So maybe just ignore that. All the other sports books still have it as a 9.5-point spread, as the Utes are the favorite to get the win coming up this Saturday against Baylor. And the scenario is pretty simple for Utah. There are plenty of avenues still available for the Utes to either qualify for the Big 12 championship game or the CFP as an at-large bid, okay? So when it comes to qualifying for the college football playoff, a lot of that isn't necessarily things where they need help from other teams. I mean, certainly they could utilize some L's when it comes, to the teams ranked ahead of them. But that's where you focus on one thing and one thing only. If you're the Utes, continue to do to lesser competition what you've done over the prior couple of games. I was at both Colorado and Cincinnati on the sidelines. I can tell you those games were over at halftime. Cincinnati rolled in here as the 17th ranked team in the country, and Utah embarrassed them. Okay, so it's a road game. It's a tough test. Baylor's a team that at times this year, I would say, has looked maybe among the top half teams in the conference. I mean, they got a great win early at SMU. They got a great win against K-State. They played, got their doors blown off at Cincinnati. They went toe-to-toe with TCU. They're coming off a win against UCF. They also had a bye last week. So this game will feature 2 teams that had a little time off to get healthy and ready to go. And Baylor still has a lot to play for themselves. I mean, 3-loss team in conference. They need another win to get bowl eligible. They do close at Arizona and then home against Houston, so plenty of opportunities for them. But if you are Utah, it is pretty simple. Leave no doubt. Simply leave no doubt, just like you've done over the past couple of weeks against a Colorado team that certainly isn't very good, and a Cincinnati team that was ranked in the top 20. And Cincinnati is still a team in Big 12 play that has everything to play for because they only have one conference loss. Now, if you're Utah, you do have to hope Cincinnati loses at least one more game. Now, the good news is you also have to hope, and I said last week it would actually be better for the Utes if BYU beat Texas Tech. We'll get to that game in a moment. BYU was curb stomped by Tech in Lubbock. Cincinnati and BYU play each other, so that will handle one of these 2 teams getting to 2 losses. To get to Arlington, you need one other loss for either team, right? So BYU, Cincinnati in 2 weeks, one of those 2 teams will go to 2 losses. So if it's Cincinnati, you need BYU to lose one more game for BYU to get to 2 losses. Because if there are 3 teams with 2 conference losses, head-to-head goes out the window, and it comes down to strength of opponent in conference, okay? And Utah has played a harder Big 12 schedule than either BYU or Cincinnati. If BYU, Cincinnati, and Utah all have 2 losses, Utah gets in to the Big 12 championship game. But the problem is, I don't know that I see maybe Cincinnati. TCU coming up this weekend in Provo, that is not a cakewalk. And right now, BYU is a favorite. But what if I told you it was 5 points, even though they're at home? And when you're at home, you typically get 3 points built in. Oh, just move. They're 5.5. BYU, as of 30 seconds ago, is now a 5.5 point favorite over TCU at home. Vegas gives you 3 points typically if you're playing at home. So what they're saying is on a neutral field, they think BYU is about a field goal better than TCU. Okay. So what you have to do in a weird way, maybe hope TCU gets BYU and then hope BYU gets Cincinnati and then handle your business. 3 2-loss teams would put Utah in the Big 12 championship game against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech, as a result of dismantling BYU in Lubbock, has established themselves clearly as the best team in conference. And I would say one of the top 6 or 7 teams in America. Incredibly impressed by them. I felt Saturday was more about Texas Tech just taking it to BYU than BYU leaving it on the field. I know there was some conversation after. And look, I applaud Chase Roberts for taking to the podium and having the courage to say, we want them again and we will beat them this time because we left so much out on the field. I applaud him. He is just wrong. Yeah, there was a JoJo Phillips drop. There was a drop by Chase himself. There was a fumble from Parker Kingston on a punt return that's uncharacteristic. Bear Bachmeier put it on the ground. Yes, there were 3 turnovers. This comes down to one thing. Texas Tech kicked 5 field goals, man, and they still won 29-7. Like, if you're Texas Tech, you feel like you left a lot on the field because you couldn't score in the red zone, which oddly is something that has plagued them all year. That was not about BYU basically handing it to Texas Tech. That was Texas Tech going to take it, just like they did to Utah here in Salt Lake. And now we move into Week 12 of the college football slate, and Texas Tech is clearly the class of the Big 12. All right, we're going to bring in our friend Joe Cravens coming up. We'll get back to college football. We got Scott Mitchell on the show today. But my buddy Dave from America First Credit Union is back in studio, gave me a lemon Pez. Dave, how are you, man?
I'm so good. Thanks so much for having me here.
It's great to see you. So, look, banking's kind of a tricky thing because I think a lot of people feel stuck, right? Like, you get into a relationship with a bank. You've got your savings, you've got your checkings, you might have a business loan or something, and trying to untangle all of that just feels sticky. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that wish they had more options or better customer service. For our listeners that are unhappy with their current banking situation, why make the switch to America First?
Yeah, the whole concept of a credit union is different than a bank. And the credit union's sole purpose is to figure out how do they help those individuals do more with their money. And that's really what we're about, is helping our members do more with their money. And credit unions were started to help people who maybe were discriminated against. They weren't really valuable to banks. The banks would not lend to them and help them out. And so the credit unions, everything that they do is going to go back into that system to help the members out. Credit unions are not for profit, and they operate then for service. That's important. And so it's a great lending institution. It's a great savings institution. It's a great place to be able to invest, to be able to think about retirement solutions. And America First does that so well. And we help individuals who are tired of that experience convert over. And how do I get my direct deposit over? How do I get set up? We're very, very happy to be able to do that. Come into any one of our branches, call the contact center, look at the website, look for solutions.
I would also add this. It feels like more of a personal touch, more of like a local touch. I will leave the name of a former bank of mine off air. I'll just say it's one of the massive national branches. And I felt every time I went into a branch, I felt like I was invisible, like I was just a number, right? And even if I had an issue, I was basically ignored, so much to the point where I left them, right? It feels like with you guys, first of all, you're growing. There are branches all over the place, and there's more of like a personal, individual touch because money is important to people. We can spend it any way we want, Dave. Money's an important factor.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's really where the credit union excels, is that personal one-on-one touch where, if I'm a poor college, starving college student, am I just as valuable as that big business owner? And for us, absolutely. It's the individual that matters. And so we want to make that a personalized touch, that you matter, you make a difference, because as a college student, you are that future business owner. So we want to give you the skills, the tools, the resources, and the service to make you a lifelong member and to come see what that difference is. And so your story is not unique to just you. I mean, it is, but there's a lot of people who get tired of not feeling seen, not being heard, and not feeling important by their financial institution. And so that's the very mission of what credit unions are all about.
So you're the official credit union of Utah Athletics.
Yes.
Last time you were in town and in the studio, you showed me your new Jazz card, which is really nice.
Oh, it's so pretty.
You do a lot of work with the soccer club as well. So we're a sports soccer radio show. Obviously, we have sports fans. Why make the switch? What sort of incentives for Utes, Jazz, RSL, and then also the new member special to kind of motivate people to come on over?
Yeah. Yeah, we love being associated with these awesome sports entities. We realize that leadership skills and competitive natures are just what our youth need. And we're very proud to align ourselves with organizations that have our like values. That's where families go for entertainment. That's where we go to celebrate. And it brings communities together, whether it's soccer or football or basketball. And so we love being involved with those organizations that support us. They also help accelerate some of our charitable initiatives. And we can lean into that power and really make an impact with our families and the communities, especially those that are maybe at risk or are less fortunate. And so we're proud to align ourselves, being the official credit union of Utah Athletics, the Jazz, RSL. We love creating, paired debit cards with them so you can, feel that team pride when it's in your wallet. And so we've got some great deals that are going on right now. The membership offer, you want to come try it out, America First. We've got a $100 offer right now just for coming and opening up an account with us. We have 87 locations all across Utah. There's locations everywhere where your listeners are. And so it's convenient. Our contact center is convenient. The mobile app is awesome. On my mobile app, I have it branded as the Jazz. I can switch back and forth between seasons and teams, but there's a great RSL skin that's really cool. But I love that Jazz, that purple Jazz skin.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys went with the purple.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So AmericaFirst.com/deals, is that the best place to go to get all this information?
There's a lot of great resources, Spence, on it. AmericaFirst.com, you can go look at loans or savings or interest rates. But yeah, there's a ton of deals that are on there. And if you're looking for that branded debit card, go there. If you're looking for other deals, there's just so much information that's out there. And if you're confused, come on in. We'll walk you through that process.
Can you switch debit cards to which team is winning? Like, let's say you're bummed that the Jazz are losing, but Utah football is awesome. Can you just go and say, hey, the Utes are better? Can I just switch this over to a Utes card now?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
There's a lot of members who have multiple cards.
Okay.
And that Jazz debit card has been kind of a collector's item. We came out with several cards several years ago. We've been doing this for 5 years now. Mm-hmm. And there's people like, I got to get that card. I got to get the new one.
Yeah.
When's the new one coming out? Yeah. So we have cards for every fan.
And you check out some of the offers based off of which team you support, because you can get into Rice-Eccles early. You get special offers on tickets. You can get into the Delta Center. You can get into the Delta Center early and also get a bunch of discounted rates on Jazz merch, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's cool about, for example, going to a Jazz game, that you link your card to your Jazz app, and you can get discounts on concessions when you order from your phone. You can get discounts, 15% discount on merch, which is super awesome. You can get in early. It's when they get a triple double, you get 32% off. So we're always hopeful for that. May or may not happen this season. But yeah, there's just so many different discounts, and not only with our Jazz and RSL and Utah partners, but also there's other deals and discounts throughout the community. That could be a theme park, a water park, or artistical thing, a museum, or concerts, or there's just lots of different things that are coming out. And I think what's really cool is our America First Fridays. That's new this year, where if you're signed up with the Jazz, they will send out a special offer on the first Friday of the month. And that could be on merchandise or tickets, buy one, get one, or we're just excited for that this season to be able to benefit our members even more.
I was thinking about you, and unfortunately Walker's out for the year, but there was a game earlier this year where Walker had like 22, 14, and 7. I was like, dude, we just need 3 more assists.
So close.
Lowry might do it. Keontae might do it. He's off to a good start. But definitely check it out, AmericaFirst.com. There are also branches all over the place. Dave, you're going to be in studio all day. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks.
We'll catch a break. Going to bring in Joe Cravens live in studio coming up on ESPN 700. Scott Mitchell's going to stop by. Played quarterback for the U. NFL for about a decade. We'll do some Utah football. We'll do some Big 12 football coming up with Scott. Richard Smith live in studio later on. But we've got some Utah men's basketball tonight. It will be on this radio station. It begins at 7 o'clock. And they are playing Holy Cross, who had a unfortunate visit to Provo over the weekend where they got smoked. Our next guest live in studio, Joe Cravens. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm good, thank you.
Do we need? So we sorry about that. So there you go.
Okay, this mic.
Yeah,
I'm talking in the wrong mic. I was.
Well, it's confusing because for our YouTube viewers, they can see that you have a headset on that actually has a microphone, but the one that's hot is in front of you.
I'm good to go now. Thanks for having me on. That's what I was trying to say. Speaking into the wrong microphone, so I'm glad to be here. We've been on remotely, I guess you would say, a couple times, but it's the first time I've been in your studio.
I was going to say, all the years of knowing you and listening to you and interviewing you, I think this is the first time I've actually met you face to face.
I was thinking the same thing, Spence. When I was asked to come on, I thought, I don't think I've ever actually even met Spence before. So it's kind of like my relationship with the new Utah basketball coach. Alex, I've coached against Alex. His brother was my assistant. I've known, now I'm doing basketball games for him, and I still haven't met Alex yet. So I don't imagine he's too worried about not meeting me, though.
Well, I'm sure. No. So here's the deal. Alex is the sweetest guy.
Oh, I know.
But the personality in that couple all belongs to his wife.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, Natalie's a lot of fun. Alex is less fun, but very nice.
And he's a girl dad, 3 daughters.
He is.
I have 2, so we have that in common as well.
The great Jeff Van Gundy because Jeff has 3 daughters, and his take is girls count as 3. So if you have 3 daughters, you actually have 9 children.
No, at one time I had when we were all at home, both daughters, a wife, and 3 count them, female cats. So
oh wow.
Talk about being outnumbered. That was in spades there.
There you go. So when it comes to this project that Alex has in front of him, I actually want to start with something that isn't necessarily involved with the team, because I was a student at the U in the 90s. And, I made Larry Kraskowiak a promise, Craig Smith a promise that I would not compare them to Rick because that's unfair. But when I was in school at the U, we were more or less a basketball school. Now, Coach McBride had taken the football program over, and we were starting to make some inroads there. Yeah. But I can remember, like on a Sunday night with friends of mine in school, we would plan our weeks around, okay, the basketball team's playing Tuesday, so we'll meet here at 6:30, we'll grab some food, and then we're going to walk over. And the building was electric and more or less sold out every single night. One of the jobs that Alex has and Mark Harlan has, we've got to try to find a way to get interest back in this basketball program. How do we do it, Coach?
I thought the other night was a real step forward. They had 6,200 fans there and a great student representation, and the 6,200 were loud, and it was a great college game. My very talented play-by-play guy toward the end said, with as great a college game as this is, why isn't Utah playing Weber State and the other in-state schools every year, which is a whole different subjects, I guess, to talk about. But as you and I talked about last week when we were talking on the phone, the downward trend in attendance, it didn't start when Majerus left. It started the last 3 or 4 years of Majerus' tenure here. And I think a lot of people think once Majerus left, all of a sudden people quit coming out. It was headed that direction toward the end of his career. And I think it's more of a societal thing than anything else. I think this is still a great basketball state. There's great high school coaches here. I just think, and you hear this all the time, there's so many more things going on now. There's so many games on TV now. When I came to work with Majerus in 1989, came at obviously the same time, we was just open our doors and we'd get 10,000 people. Utah was always in the top 10 in attendance across the nation. And it just continued to grow under Majerus and what people are referring to now as the golden era of Utah basketball. I don't know. I'm not a sports psychologist. I don't know what the answer is of why it started declining like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they'll ever bring it back. I'm not talking about Utah. I'm talking about college basketball in general, back to where it was at one time. And but I think Alex and his coaching staff made a big step forward with their win over Weber State, which I think they weren't expecting quite the fight from Weber State they got. Between you and I'll probably mention this. Weber State probably deserved to win that game, but Utah came back that second half and showed some grit and togetherness and came away with a win. But it was just a fabulous college basketball game.
I do want to talk about this iteration of the Utes, and I want to talk about that game. But let me take advantage of the space now that we brought up Coach Majerus. I went to Rick's camps every year growing up. Sure. I was at the camp where he kind of discovered Mike Doliak, which was a funny thing, because Mike was this big, skilled kid, obviously, and it was kind of felt like love at first sight when Rick kind of laid his eyes on him. And then, I had a very short experience walking on up there, and for a player like me, when you go up against a guy who's a pro, you realize you need to find something else to do. So mine was Andre. Mine was Andre Miller. I called my dad within 2 weeks. I'm like, I can't play here, dude. There's a pro, right? But Rick was always very good to me. I wasn't one of his better players, and I was at plenty of practices and witnessed Rick being Rick to some of the Britton Johnsons of the world, who's one of my dear friends. It always felt like he gave his life to the game. It always, almost to the point where maybe it took him from us at a very young age. What made him tick, Joe? What made Rick Majerus tick?
Well, I don't have the answer to that. I have thought many, many times, but he did give his life for basketball.
Yeah.
He wasn't married. He didn't have a family. My last year with him, I was with him for 4 years, really 3 and some change, because after I think 4 or 5 games, our first years, when he had to have heart surgery and I took over.
Yeah.
He, to his credit, was completely out of the picture. It wasn't like he was calling me, and I had some really good guys with me, Donnie Daniels and Jeff Judkins and Kirk Earlywine. So really, I was just with him for 3 more years. But my last year with him, we had a coaches meeting at 10 o'clock Christmas morning, and now we had a game on the 26th, but we certainly could have avoided a 10 o'clock Christmas morning meeting, but he had no one to have Christmas with.
Yeah.
And I had a Big Sky coach, a young coach, called me last night, and just for kind of to bounce some ideas off of and for some advice, I guess you could say. And I gave him and he's got 3 young children. And I said the Mike Ditka quote that I remember from years ago, when he said, if coaching is all you have, it will devour you. And I think Coach Majerus is a great example of that. I think he lived and died with the game. And I had heard one person, which I won't mention who said this, but they said, I hope they put his 1-loss record on his tombstone, because that's what he lived and died for.
Yeah, yeah. What does it say to you that, and this is funny because I have so many things swirling through my head. I did pre-app and post for the Jazz for 7 years with Britton. Britton was a partner of mine on the broadcast, and he would always talk about that Al was the apple of Rick's eye. That, Britton always said there were 2 players that Rick never really went at. One was Al, the other was Andre, because Andre was so good. What do you think it was about Al that endeared him so much to Rick, and do you see any similarities between the two at all?
Well, it's funny. That brought back a memory. This memory came back to me not long ago. He was Alex was the apple Rick's eye before he ever came to Utah. Rick went to see him play, I think Al's senior year, and there was a gentleman that I think was like a vice president or a provost or something at Ball State who had befriended Rick, and he was hanging around our office, and they'd gone to see Al play in high school. And I remember them having a discussion in the basketball office that Rick said he's going to be a career NBA player.
Oh, that young, huh?
And
wow.
And this gentleman from Ball State said, "No, Rick, no." And Rick said, "No, he will." And he said, "Let's make a bet." And they made a pretty sizable bet, $100 or something, a paid vacation or something like that. And Alex did not become a career NBA player. He had a great pro career playing overseas, and obviously a great career at University of Utah. Still the most amazing statistic I think about Alex when I think about it, he never lost a home game. He still hadn't lost a home game at Utah. Never lost a home game as a player.
That's wild.
That is just wild.
Holy smokes.
Wild. But, Rick held him in such high regard before he ever came to Utah for him to coach. But he was always that way. He always had a guy or two that was just kind of his guy, and then a guy or two that was kind of constantly in his doghouse, so to speak. And I don't know how he differentiated those, but that was just part of the deal playing at University of Utah.
Stylistically, just the game of basketball has changed. Stylistically, the way it's played has changed.
No question.
And there's part of me that, and I don't want to be the guy that's always like, oh, the 90s were better or whatever, but I was raised on 90s NBA basketball, and as a student at the U in the 90s, I was raised, because you made a really good point about the popularity of simply basketball, not just college basketball, but basketball not being what it was in the 90s. But college hoops in the 90s, you had those Tark teams, UNLV, it was Leitner, it was, like the Hurley, those Duke teams. The ratings for college hoops, Fab Five, Michigan during the 90s were through the roof. Do you think, I'm not going to say lack of interest entirely, because March Madness still brings a lot of eyes,
sure,
but do you think the way that interest has waned a little bit, both on pro and college basketball, is because of how it's changed stylistically?
That could be. It's definitely different. I think Majerus would still be very effective coaching college basketball, but he to coin a phrase of his, he was offensively inside some more.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go a whole game and not see a post catch right now,
mm-hmm.
and it is just become the flavor of the day right now is the dribble handoff to the ball screen, the little weave, and about everyone's running that. And there's some subtleties to that are a little different with everyone else, but it is another thing that Majerus just thrived on and lived on was offensive rebounding. And you could see games now where teams get 3 or 4 offensive rebounds, and not University of Houston or some of the old guys, Kelvin Sampson. And I hear guys say, well, now the 3-point line, you got to get back and defend the 3-point line. And I always say, watch Kansas and Houston play. They do both, and I think you can do both. But that Majerus used to, just browbeat guys into getting to the offensive glass, and that's an offensive rebounding has now gone by the way of the unicorn, it seems like. But it is a different brand of game. Very few sets. One of the things that made Majerus so effective early on was the way he scouted people and his defensive preparation, which I gleaned from him, and I think any level of success I ever had, that had a lot to do with it. We would take people completely out of their set plays and just hold them. And how many times I heard from the other coach or other players, God, you guys knew our plays better than what we knew them. Well, there's very few set plays anymore. And I don't know how defensively Majerus would adapt and adjust to that. I'm sure he would figure out a way and be just fine. But the game has changed. I think a big part of the change is not so much on the court now about what's going on with the transfer portal and the NIL. And I made the comment when I broadcasted my first Utah game this year that it just had a whole different feel to it. It felt more like going to a Jazz game. They've got a general manager, not just in title. A lot of teams now, some Big Sky teams like Weber State has Damian Lillard as their GM. But, I think that's more of an honorary title. It's not that way at Utah. I mean, they have –
No, it's Wes's job.
It's Wes's job.
Yeah,
I mean, he's at the game. He's doing the GM's deal. And it just, to me, and I'm not saying that's negative or positive, it feels different now. And I was thinking, it feels like professional basketball. Well, that's because it is professional basketball now.
Yep.
Guys are being paid, and it is just a different game. And I don't know how much that has to do. Of course, that hasn't been long term. That's only been in the last 4 or 5 years. But I just think society, the change of, I mean, now people would rather sit at home and look at their cell phones or play video games or whatever. It just is different now, and I don't have the answer to that, but I do know the level of attendance and excitement, as you said, is just not there anymore, and not just at Utah. Weber State which I do a lot of their games on ESPN Plus as well, and you talk to, and this has been going on for years up there. Oh, I remember we used to sell out every game. Well, I had their president tell me one time, we never sold out every game. People thought that, but they used to draw a whole lot better than what they do now.
Yeah.
And, why is that? That wasn't so I think that's across the board in college athletics.
Before we catch a break, one more thing here, because you referenced, Rick's ability, you guys as a staff, your ability to really take the other team out of their sets and make them uncomfortable and take away what they wanted to do. And that 97-98 run, I mean, the game that I don't think ever gets enough credit because of what happened was the Arkansas game. Kareem Reed was their point guard. So during the tournament, it was an opening win against San Francisco, then a tough second-round draw against Arkansas, a close game against West Virginia. But that Arizona team you guys beat, or the Utah beat, was jam-packed with pros. That was the Mike Bibby team. That was the Michael Dickerson team, Miles Simon, Jason Terry. They had 4 NBA guys. The Carolina team, they beat Antoine Jamison. Shammond Williams was a really good college point guard, never an NBA guy. Of course, Vince Carter, Ed Cota, shout out St. Thomas More in Connecticut, Brendan Haywood. And Rick had talent. Now, I think lost on this Hoosier-type Cinderella run. No, wait a second. He had some kids that could play as well. But the way that team was able to, whether it was a triangle and 2, box and 1, take away the other team's most dangerous weapon, it may have been my favorite season of Utah basketball of all time. It was really fun.
Well, it started with the scouting report with Rick at that time, and if you had the scouting report, you were under tremendous pressure to know exactly what the other team was doing. I always told the guys, if they have a guy that scratches his behind with his right hand, you better know which hand he's scratching with and how many times a game he's going to scratch it. I mean, he was that detailed, and that was part of his huge success.
All right, we'll catch a break. Let's bring in Dave now from America First Credit Union. Joe Cravens is live in studio. We just took a trip down memory lane. Well, there's basketball being played now, so we're going to lean into that coming up on the other side of a quick break. But Dave, America First Credit Union, how are you, buddy?
So good. It's good to be here, and Joe, good to have you here too.
I'm telling you, this is why he's such a great broadcaster. There's not a better storyteller. You could sit and listen to Joe, for hours and hours on end. All right, we did our introduction to America First Credit Union last segment. Let's talk about your America First Charitable Foundation. It is the 31st annual Warm the Souls for Kids. Tell us about it, Dave.
Yeah, this is one of our most endearing initiatives that we do, Spence. We've been doing this for over 3 decades. The Warm the Souls for Kids is just an initiative that we have where we gather funds and purchase shoes for underprivileged children. And last year we donated over 4,000 pairs of shoes, new pairs of shoes, to 48 schools and organizations. And it's so heartwarming to know that we're making a difference in the lives of people.
How can our listeners help? How can they get involved?
Yeah, this is such a cool thing. In the past, we have allowed listeners and the community and our members, our employees, our management team to contribute dollars, and we could not do that without the help of a whole community. And so we're still doing that. If you're a member of America First, you can make an online donation, your mobile banking, your online banking. You can come into a branch and you can make a donation while you're there visiting the branch. If you're not a member of America First, you can still come into a branch and make a donation. A lot of our promotional materials have a QR code. You can scan that and send in a transfer. New this year, we are accepting tangible physical pairs of shoes, which we've not really done for quite some time. And so this is a new thing where if you're out shopping and you see a new pair of shoes, tennis shoes that kids could wear, come drop those off and we'll make sure they get where they're supposed to go.
I would imagine there are a lot of listeners that probably have a closet full of shoes. They're like, I'm never going to wear those. I mean, grab those too and bring them in, right?
We're looking for a new pair of shoes.
New pair of shoes.
Yeah, these are kids that have probably had shoes that were hand-me-downs, ill-fitting, worn out. This initiative really is to provide them with a well-fitting new pair of shoes because honestly, these kids that are learning in the schools, this is going to boost some confidence. These kids are walking to school in inclement weather. These are kids that are maybe embarrassed because they don't have, a good, fitting pair of shoes. And so we're requesting that these are new shoes. And if not, then, financial donations absolutely work just as well.
Okay, leave the old shoes in the closet or take them elsewhere. Do not bring them to America First.
Correct.
These are new shoes only, or donations, taking that online as well.
Yeah.
All right, before we catch a break, let's just hit the call to action for people that might not be happy with their current banking situation, and why right now is a good time to check out America First Credit Union.
Yeah, such a great time, whether it's products and services, whether it's good rates, whether you need some lending opportunities. America First is a great place to go. We have so many convenient locations all across the Wasatch Front, 87 total locations in Utah. And so come on in, open up an account. We'll give you $100 just for trying us out. And that's definitely worth your time, especially, as we come up into the holidays. $100 is going to go.
Sure. AmericaFirst.com, or just stop into any of the, did you say 87 branches in Utah?
87 locations in Utah.
Good stuff. All right, Dave, good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
We'll catch a quick break. More with the coach, Joe Cravens. He'll be on the call tonight for Utah Holy Cross. We'll talk about the win over Weber State. And BYU's got some talent down in Provo. We'll get Joe's take on young A.J. DeBonson, what Kevin Young has going on. More college hoops coming up. Scott Mitchell at 3:30. We're back to Utah football then. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go on a Monday drive. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Joe Cravens, legendary coach, broadcasters, live in studio. Fun trip down memory lane as Joe worked with Rick Majerus here at the U for a number of different years. But there is basketball being played now. That's right. Utah basketball is still a program that is playing currently. Off to a 2-0 start, Joe. We'll get to the game tonight in a moment. This is going to be a long game play for Alex. You had referenced earlier that, and if you watch the Weber game, they probably deserve to win it. Don McHenry with a big 3 to send it to overtime. Terrence Brown, a career-high 36 points. So tell me what you saw from that game and what you like most about what Alex is building as far as the personnel rotations and schematics and such.
Well, I think he's got terrific guards right now. And when I say right now, it's hard to sign off. His guards are very, very good. But when they get up against Big 12 defenders, the thing that worries me, Terrence Brown and Don McHenry, both extraordinarily talented, great ball skills, but one of them is 6'3", 175, and the other one's 6'2", 170. They'll be facing guards in the Big 12 that are 210, big, strong guards. So I think the jury's still out as to how they'll be good. I don't know if they'll be this good or not. The guy that I think has a chance to have an all-league year and a breakout year is Keanu Dawes, who chose to stay. Now, he does have a Big Ten body, 6'9", 230, and as I like to say, strong enough to go bear hunting with a switch if he wants to. He's a big old strong kid. I'm a big fan of his. But I like what Alex is doing. They're you can see the Majerus influence with him. He's straight man-to-man. I know he's not real happy right now with his transition defense, which very subtly was a cornerstone of Rick Majerus's success. One of his favorite sayings is, we give up nothing in transition. In many, many games, we'd go 4 or 5 games in a row and never give up a layup in transition. But I really like Alex's demeanor on the sideline. He is kind of cool, calm, and collective, but you can tell he has the players' attention. And I think it's a process. I mean, they were lucky to beat Weber State the other night. I say that not rooting for either team, but Eric Duff had his team ready to play, and at halftime was shooting 55% and out rebounding Utah by double digits. And as I said on the air, one of the things as a head coach I always did at halftime, the first stat I looked at was rebounding, and because I think rebounding is a measuring stick of effort.
No rebound, no rings, right? The Pat Riley saying back in the day, yeah.
And again, another Majerus saying was rebounding is an affair of the heart. Well, Weber was just killing Utah on the glass. Well, whatever Coach Jensen said at halftime, he got his message across because Utah woke up and came out and played much better second half. But Weber State took it to them, and they're a made free throw away from putting that game away. They're at the free throw line up 3, up 2, hit one free throw, missed the other one, and allowed Utah to come down and hit that corner 3. And then it was a huge momentum shift then, and Utah pretty much just ruled the overtime. But I got to tip my hat to Weber State and Coach Eric Duff as to how they played. Now they've got to turn around Weber State, I'm speaking of, and go up to Utah State and then go to Cal Irvine. So they've got 2 more tough games. But, those used to be, and I'm saying that's just because that was such a great game, those used to be every year games for Weber State. It was like that was only the second time in 14 years that Weber State had played Utah, and the first time they'd been to the Huntsman Center for many years. I can't remember the exact date. But that used to be, you remember the old okra bucket days.
Sure, yeah.
And, for us at Weber State, we'd play, I think it was Utah and Utah State on the road one year and BYU at home, and then it'd flip-flop. We'd play at BYU and then Utah State and Utah at our place, and those were huge games. And I had to guard against when I was the coach at Weber State. Those games seemingly more important than our conference games. We'd get through with those, and it'd be almost a letdown. Oh, now we're starting conference play. But they were always exciting games.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that we're not doing that anymore. But, like a lot of things, no one called to ask my opinion on any of those, unless they, I missed the call maybe. I don't know. But I like what's going on with Alex. I like Weber State's team. Utah State just seems to keep rolling up there. They just got some magic. I was talking to Tim Miles, the coach at San Jose State, and I said something to the effect that, Utah State I think is going to be good again. He said, God, they're just good every year.
They are, yeah.
Like I don't know. And I told him the story. I beat Stu a couple times, but both of them were at Weber State. I beat Utah a couple times. I beat BYU once, but up in Logan, we almost won a game one time, and I came home and threw a party. Almost won a game.
Yeah.
It's like going to get a root canal going up there. It's really hard to play up there, but that again, the old Okra Bucket rivalry days, and those have left us now.
Now, I'm one, and this might be selfish because it's probably better for my business. Like, I get asked all the time, who do you cheer for in state? And I say the same thing every time, all of them. Want everyone to win every single game. Yeah. Football, basketball, it's better for me if they're winning because people want to listen. You do have a few, hate listeners that are angry.
Yes.
They want to tune in if their team lost. But I'm also one that's always said, give me all the in-state games. Yeah, basketball and football, I want all of them.
Well, I grew up in Indiana. Long before ESPN we got 3 channels on our TV, but we used to get the Big Ten game of the week, the SEC game of the week, the Missouri Valley game of the week. So we grew up around great basketball, and I always said I had great coaches growing up being in Indiana, but I think the Utah high school coaches mirror that. I think there's great high school coaches here in Utah, and it is a great basketball state here, but you know what? Indiana University is going through exactly the same thing University of Utah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They haven't won big for a while. Their crowds are down. Now the one team in state that's blown and going is Purdue right now. But to build on your point, I root for all of them. And people would say, "Are you Indiana or Purdue fan?" I actually, there's probably more Kentucky fans in Southern Indiana than Indiana fans from where I'm from.
Yeah.
We're 30 miles from Louisville, so we grew up with great, Louisville Cardinal basketball too. So, yeah, I think Utah and Indiana are very comparable that way, and that let's root for all of them because they're all great basketball schools.
We're a great basketball state. Look, college football, and your point about Indiana, they have the second-ranked football team in the country, right? Their football, and who would have ever thought that was going to be a thing? Football has carved out real estate in our country, both on the professional level and the collegiate level, that I do think has put college basketball and pro basketball a bit of a backseat. But you think about the history and the pedigree of basketball in the state of Utah. We had Larry and Magic, right?
Sure.
The most watched basketball game in the history of the sport took place here in Salt Lake. It was Mike's shot against the Jazz in '98 after he stole it from Carl and came down and hit the shot that everybody remembers. BYU, Utah State, Weber, and you referenced the high school scene. And there's a gym in every church.
Yes.
Even if you didn't play, and this was not the way it was. I grew up in Southern Connecticut, which is more of a lacrosse hockey spot. And I played high school basketball. But if you come out here, even if you didn't play high school basketball, you know how to play basketball. Right. Everybody just knows how to play here. I talked to Britton Covey about this, who of course is an NFL player, and Britton was an all-state basketball player in high school before he decided to go all in on football. And I had him in studio once, and we were just talking about this weird dynamic where it's here, compared to most other places, everybody grows up playing basketball. It's a basketball state,
It really is. I tell you a couple Indiana stories. Back growing up in a small town I did, no one played inside in the summertime. Everyone played outdoor on asphalt course down at the park, and you may, your 5 guys against their 5 guys. You may have a 50-year-old guy on your team and a 14-year-old guy, and like you say, everybody played. Just everybody played. But the downside of everyone, for me, I always tell this story in jest is when I was a head coach either at Idaho or the year I was interim coach at Utah or Weber State, and we'd have a national TV game, my buddies at home who were very supportive of me, but they all think they're coaches. Well, yeah, that was a great win last night. How come you don't zone more, though? You know what? I mean, they all had a little advice for you, know?
Yeah.
And they, their day job may be working at the American Can Company or something, but they think you should zone a little bit more. So.
It reminds me of that scene in Hoosiers when Gene Hackman is called into the restaurant and they're going to fire the coach because he doesn't play enough zone, and he's insisting on playing man-to-man. What kind of player were you? You played college hoops. What?
Oh, I was just barely a player. I was. In fact, ironically, I'm going to get a chance to broadcast my alma mater, Texas Arlington. They're in a little tournament up at Weber State.
Nice.
I was very fortunate that I was able to play and then parlay that into a coaching career, and I'm very grateful for a chance to play college basketball through the experiences I made. And I had a chance. My claim to fame, we were playing at Texas Arlington, and we were playing against Pan American, which is now Texas Pan American Rio Grande Valley or something. And the great Abe Lemons was coaching there, and obviously this was for the three-point line. They had the nation's leading scorer, a guy named Marshall Rogers, who then played a little bit in the NBA, and he was averaging 36, and I had a chance to guard him. I managed to hold him to 48. So that was my big claim to fame of playing college basketball.
Yeah.
But then I was able to get right into coaching right after that, and then after my coaching career, able to get right into TV. So I've been on if you count my 4 years of playing and 30 years of coaching, this is my 20th year broadcasting. That's 54 years of watching guys run around in short breeches in a gym. So I've been very fortunate, no question.
I love the basketball lifers. Like there are very few people that have taught me more about basketball than Gordy. Gordy Chiesa, who I think should be in the Hall of Fame. But I have a very reverent respect for coaches.
Yeah.
And my mom always used to say, because we'd have team dinners, she'd say, "I want you to go find your coach's wife and give her a hug and say thank you." Right?
No.
Because of all of the sacrifices you make if you're married to a coach. And I played for a really great AAU team, a great AAU coach who I still stay in contact with, 2 high school coaches who I love to this day. Mike Maxwell just retired at Bountiful, where we were lucky enough to win a state title in '97, and we had a team dinner this last year before Mike stepped aside. And I love coaches. I respect the industry, and I actually think coaches make the best broadcasters, more so than ex-players.
Well, I don't know. I kind of backed into being a broadcaster. I had no plans of being a broadcaster. And after I got fired, a guy called, and I won't bore you with all the details, and said, "Do you ever think about doing TV?" I said, "No, I never really thought about doing that. I think it's something I could do." And it just coincided with the old Mountain Network starting up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's more details to it than that. And they gave me a 5-game tryout package, and I did that, and then they gave me a few more games, and by the end of the year I was doing the color in the Big Sky, or the Mountain West Conference Tournament, which is a great conference tournament, and it was with the Mountain Network their whole 6 years. But like a lot of things, I kind of backed into it, and I had, it wasn't something I thought, boy, I really want to be a broadcaster. But I sure have enjoyed it, and I sure know I am very lucky. And the greatest thing about being a broadcaster, you never get beat. You're around the game, and you get to watch a great game like we did Saturday night. And boy, I felt bad for Eric Duft and for a few minutes, and I said, "Let's go get a sandwich and a beer, boys." And you didn't have to go home.
You're not going to lose sleep. Yeah.
It is a great gig, and I'll hang on as long as I can, which may just be after tonight. Who knows? It could end at any time. But I've been very, very fortunate, Spence, to be involved from this part of college basketball.
Now, my favorite broadcasters, analysts, they've all been coaches, both pro and college. And, I think it's just the ability to take a game that can be complex but make it digestible for the viewer and the listener, so you're not overly confused, but you're also understanding what's going on. And I also like listening to coaches' press conferences if they're in the mood.
Yes.
Because if they're not in the mood, it can be very quick and can be very Greg Popovich kind of set the standard of being pithy and almost dismissive and mean in a way.
Yes.
But like the guy that the Jazz have, Will Hardy, when he is in the mood, he is a real phenomenal teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of unpacks a lot of things that makes it digestible and understandable. But I wanted to ask you about this because one of the things that's always been interesting to me is the majority of the best coaches weren't the best players, right? Like it's almost like the players, and you could even talk about the best coaches in pro basketball. Phil Jackson was a good pro, but he was a sixth man for a Knick team that won a championship. Pat Riley was a fine player. Steve Kerr won a bunch of titles, but as, kind of a sidekick for Mike and then Tim Duncan. And most of the best players did not make great coaches. I can remember when Magic tried it. Magic tried to coach the Lakers for like 10 games. And I remember listening to a press conference he gave. He said, well, I can't get them to play like me. And I'm like, you're Magic Johnson.
Right.
Of course they can't play like you. What do you think it is about players that really had to kind of maximize everything that they could just to kind of be in the room that seem to translate over into great coaches? It's always fascinated me.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head. Great players like Magic and like Jordan, and so much of it is natural and instinctive. And the guys that aren't quite as talented, they've got to learn the game a little more. They've got to digest it quite a bit more, and I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think communicative skills probably has a lot to do with it. I think it's probably a combination of things, but that's been an age-old thing as well. And for every ex-coach who's I think a pretty good commentator, there's a lot of guys who think it's pretty easy and they just show up.
Yeah.
And aren't. And those may be the same guys that are great. Were great in one thing that came naturally to them, that the other thing isn't quite so comes so naturally to them. And I one of the things I do, and I don't, I think for every person that says they enjoy me as a broadcaster, there's probably someone else out there that says, I can't stand that ignorant hillbilly. It makes me crazy. But, no one can say I'm not prepared. I take great pride in my preparation. And I think that sometimes separates people who try to do it who aren't very good at it. They think you're just going to show up and you're going to be a commentator. Mm-hmm. And the other people who do their homework. And like I said, it takes me about 6 hours per game to get prepared.
Yeah.
And I always over-prepare, and that's kind of the old coach in me. I think it's like doing a scouting report. You're always scared to death that if you put that if you don't put that in out of bounds play that you haven't seen for 2 games into your scouting report, then sure enough they're going to run it, and you're going to get scored on.
Yep.
And there's a tidbit you think, I don't know if I want to put that down on what broadcasters call their game board, which is a huge cheat sheet, is what it amounts to. And so I always end up using probably 30 to 40% of the information I have. But I never know what 30 or 40% it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So, and I hate the feeling of thinking I'm underprepared.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But again, I think that goes back to my coaching days and probably a derivative of working for Rick Majerus.
Right. Yeah.
You better have your stuff down pretty good.
Yeah, the quick anecdote. Then I want to ask you about AJ because a lot of Jazz fans need to be watching BYU basketball, keeping their fingers crossed they can keep adding talent. But just along the lines of how maniacal and hardworking great coaches seem to be, and certainly there's a little bit of paranoia because you guys are hired to be fired, and you all know that, unfortunately. But I can remember the Knicks used to practice at SUNY Purchase in Westchester, New York. And that was kind of on the way to the airport. And so my father had a little office there. And we left early at because, we were very spoiled in Utah to have an airport 20 minutes away.
Sure.
Where I grew up, if you want to get to JFK, you deal with the Van Wyck and you leave 3 hours early to get to the airport. Wow. So we're leaving at 4 a.m. to take a family vacation. And my dad realizes he had left something at SUNY Purchase in Westchester, which is right off the freeway. So we get off the freeway, and at this point, it's 4:30 in the morning, and Jeff Van Gundy was there. And I saw Jeff talking to my father, and I was like, man, Jeff gets here really, really, really early, doesn't he? And my dad said, he hasn't left. This is from the night before. It's 4:30 a.m., and he hadn't gone home yet. This is a father and a husband. So there is this maniacal work ethic approach that you guys all seem to have. Sometimes with the case of Rick, it might be a little bit overboard. And as we referenced, give your life to the game. But before I set you loose, Joe Cravens is with us. He's going to be on the call tonight as the Utes take on Holy Cross. There's a lot to like about A.J. DeMonsa. You know, when you just look at the measurables, you look at the skill set. What stood out to me watching him over the first couple of games, this is going to sound trite, but he plays hard.
Yes.
Like a lot of these talented kids that know they're a top 3 pick, Ben Simmons, LSU, they just show up and they know they don't have to do anything. I like that A.J. plays hard. He seems to play in the team concept. What stands out most to you about him?
Well, I was just getting ready to say, he seems to enjoy his teammates. He's a part of the team. It isn't the team and then him. He really, to me, tries to blend in, and obviously his talent and his reputation stand out. But it looks like to me he's going almost overboard to try to blend in and be a part of the team, just be a teammate. I like the way he interacts with these guys. His talent is just glaring. I mean, he is so much better than anyone else out there on so many levels. But I watched his communication. I watched he has very positive body language. You know, something that's lost today, Spence, and you being the player in the background, you never see guys hit each other on the backside anymore. Isn't it amazing? Look, and I've watched some games where, a team comes close to you and, a timeout, and, you don't see guys clap their hands and hit everyone on the backside and say, let's go, let's go. And he's got a little of that in him. He kind of has that enthusiasm. And I appreciate that about him. I appreciate the way he tries to fit in. And like I say, his talent is just so unbelievable that I think he's going to be – I don't think he's going to be a good NBA player. I think he's going to be a great NBA player.
Yeah, it feels generationally special for sure. Hey, pleasure to meet you face-to-face for the first time. Have an excellent call tonight, and we'd love to get you back in soon, okay?
Yeah, no, thanks, Spence. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. Joe Cravens, he's going to be on the call tonight. Don't forget, our coverage for the Utah men's basketball game against Holy Cross will come your way at 7 o'clock this evening. So stay tuned. We got a lot to do between now and then. Scott Mitchell is going to join us coming up on the other side of a quick break. We're back to Utah football. Get his thoughts on how Texas Tech handled BYU. But my buddy Dave from America First Credit Union is live in studio. Dave, happy Monday, sir. How are you?
Oh, so good. It's been really a pleasure this last hour talking and listening to these awesome stories. And, Joe, I have one favor. This is the Spence Checketts Big Sky Invitational Tournament. Spence just stole the ball coast to coast, goes up for a jam. Give us your best one-liner for that call.
He just stole the ball, and
I'm probably pulling up for 3. I'm not dunking it.
Okay, he pulls up for 3.
Probably pull up and shoot it from 3.
Give us your best one-liner.
Well, they don't come quite. They don't come on request. They come kind of naturally,
organically, right? Yeah.
A lot of people. I've been asked, "Do you have a list of those?" No, they just kind of come off the cuff. So you kind of caught me kind of unprepared for that one.
If only, man, I always wished I could dunk. We have this thing in Utah where it's dunk ball, where if your neighbor has a sports court, you can lower the hoops to like 8.5 feet, so you feel like you're an athlete. I could grab the rim, couldn't palm a ball. So I wasn't dunking ever.
That was my high school coach used to say I couldn't dunk off a step ladder.
There's one. I could shoot it. That's about it.
I found a list here. I'm gonna use one of yours.
I love it. All right, America.
1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on a banana peel.
Just an old Southern Indiana
there
slang.
You go. There you go.
What was the one you said? Strong enough to fight a bear with a switchblade? Did you say that? Or?
See, that's the other thing with those people. Never get them right.
Yeah.
They try big enough to go bear hunting with a switch.
But
again, that's just if you go back to my hometown, you'd hear that. One of those every 15 minutes.
I love it. I love it. Coach, great to see you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, Dave. Unfortunately, the government shutdown continues, and unfortunately, that has affected a lot of people. You guys in America First Credit Union, you have a government shutdown furlough loan offer. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, Spence, we have such strong ties to federal employees in our military. I mean, we started back in 1939 because of that. And so being true to our roots, we want to make sure that every listener knows there's resources out there. It's very troubling that, we have a shutdown and there's people who've gone without paychecks. There's some news and some buzz that they might be coming to a resolution, but we know that lives are impacted and families are impacted. So we have this government shutdown furlough loan offer that will help people survive during that time. We know there's better resources out there than maybe going to a payday lender, a title for loan, kind of a deal. And so we have an awesome offer to help supplement those paychecks that are lost. When we first rolled it out, it was up to 2 paychecks. Now it's up to 3 paychecks. But if someone who qualifies is affected, then there are some 0% loans for them up to 30 days, and those repayment terms are up to 7 months. And that first payment is not really due until 45 days after that loan is funded. And so this offers a very simple process and a very simple solution that's very low cost or no cost, depending upon when they pay that back. And our hearts go out to those federal employees and military members who are going without. So we want to help.
I would imagine this is resonating with a lot of people. I mean, I've got a buddy who's an air traffic controller, and he's kind of like wondering, when is this going to end? And I'll leave the politics off air, but it's just sad that our leaders can't really understand how they're affecting the American public. How can people get more information or maybe start this process when it comes to this government shutdown furlough loan offer?
Yeah, we've tried to make this very simple for them. They can apply online, go to americafirst.com. It's right there, main banner page ad. They can see where that's at and just apply. We've really minimized the qualifications for this because we know that money needs to come quickly to those who are experiencing those paycheck losses. And so we want to make sure that we're helping cover those. So, just go check out americafirst.com. If that doesn't resonate with you, come into one of our branches and talk with one of our friendly representatives. When we checked last week, on Saturday, I think it was, or Friday, we had over 600 plus people take advantage of that. We've funded over $1.75 million to help put people back in the driver's seat of their finances so they can survive.
Love it. Also, we've got an offer for new members where they get $100 just for opening a savings and a checkings account. And if you're looking to educate your child, $50, right, for teens up to 17?
Yeah, such a great time to be able to come in and open up an account. We'll give you $100. But for your teens, it's never too early to start those teens out with some financial resources. And so open them up an account, and we'll give you $50. That could go to putting, some treats in the kids' pocket, or that could help them pay for some school stuff, arts or sports, or that could get them started for some Christmas shopping. So, yeah.
AmericaFirst.com, or stop by any of their 87 local branches. Dave, you're the man.
Thanks.
Scott Mitchell joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, don't forget, we're going to let you hear from Coach Witt coming up 5 o'clock, right at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. It is game week for the Utes. It's the Baylor Bears coming up on Saturday. And as I say every year, if you make it to mid-November, and as a college football fan, you still have something to hope for, that is a good thing, and the Utes have a lot to hope for. Our next guest played quarterback at the U, played in the NFL. He's now a member of our broadcast team. Hello, Scott Mitchell. Happy Monday. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Spence. I'm doing great.
What are you hoping to see from Utah coming off a bye week? Obviously, a week off, get healthy. What should we hope to see coming up on Saturday?
Hope for is it's not about winning. It's about winning in style right now. Since we're really praying for subjective inclusion into the college football playoffs, we have to look the part. And I think eking out a win, playing ugly doesn't serve well. It's like the polls said, we like Utah, we're going to put you close. Now let's see what you do the rest of the way. And these last three games are games Utah absolutely should win, and they should consider winning in style. And I think it's really important. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Is there a danger when a bye week comes at a time where there's so much momentum that feels like it's just kind of going the right way with those two? Because they weren't just wins, Scott, to your point. I mean, both Colorado and Cincinnati, those games were over at halftime. Is there a little bit of a danger that a bye week comes when the team seems to be rolling a little bit?
So it does go both ways. I mean, you can have times when you can run into, how, man, we're right in a groove, a rhythm, and you're going to throw that off right now. It's like someone calling a timeout on you, or, just something to kind of mess up your rhythm. But a lot of times when you've been playing a long season and you have this really big push to the end, November is about winning championships, and having that break and just kind of taking a time out a little bit and refreshing yourself and just really kind of gearing up for the end of the year. And I think that's where this Utah team is. I think there's a lot of excitement, but it's also nice to just get that little reprieve. I really think it will help a lot with a few of the injuries. There haven't really been a lot of injuries. It may help with Devin Dampier and him kind of getting more healthy. So I like the bye. I know, like in Detroit, when we played on Thanksgiving, kind of a similar time, late in the year, and we got this 10-day window, and it was huge. And it was a huge, come up for air kind of moment to just push through to the end of the season. And we always felt like it was a huge advantage to have that. So most of the time, I think the timing of a bye right now, I think is a good thing.
So, Scott, you're going to need to help me understand a couple of things here. In your opinion, why do you think these advanced metrics really love Utah? I mean, when you look at FPI, when you look at S&P Plus, and these are two metrics that the committee itself has told us they are using. We'll start with S&P Plus. Utah fell one spot because they were idle, but S&P Plus has the Utes as the seventh best team in the country, ahead of Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Georgia, and even Alabama, right behind Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. We'll get to Texas Tech in a moment. And then if we move over to the College Football Power Index, Utah fell a couple of spots this week because they're on a bye to 9. So they have Utah just behind Texas, just ahead of USC, and actually ahead of Texas Tech. And look, head-to-head matters. It just does, because if we're not analyzing the actual games, then what are we doing here? What do you think it is about this Utes team that the advanced metrics seem to so highly favor?
One of the things that's really stood out to me is kind of the well-roundedness of this team. They don't have that just elite superstar player, but they have really good players at most positions. Offensive line is really good. The defensive line is really good. The secondary has turned into a massively pleasant surprise this year. The linebackers have played well. The quarterbacks have played well, and you've seen the emergence of a few playmakers on offense. Some of these younger players. So that's kind of how I look at Utah, and I even look at Utah that way in the Big 12. And I think part of it too, is I think the conference as a whole has a lot of quality teams in it, like Utah. It doesn't have that Ohio State, but it doesn't have a whole bunch of Purdue's and you have the bottom end of the conference like you do in every conference, but the top end of the conference is pretty good. I mean, there's Arizona State is a good football team who beat Texas Tech. Cincinnati's a good football team. BYU, there's a lot of good teams in the Big 12. And so I think it's been a very competitive and even probably later in the year more respected, especially when they put Utah where they have in all these power rankings and all the things you're looking at. The only losses Utah has had have been to teams, ranked high and they played a lot of ranked teams this year. And if you stay up late enough to watch a lot of the games they played well in, and they've looked really, really good. The UCLA game, they looked really good. Colorado, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Arizona State. I mean, his team's played well other than when the quarterback gets injured in the two big games against Texas Tech and BYU. And those were games that Utah was really in for most of the games. So this is a good football team. It's just not a team with a lot of flash and some of the big dominant players. Spencer Fano is as good as they get in the country, and Caleb Lomu, and I mean there's some quality players on this team, but just not some of the flash you get in some of these other programs.
So before we jump over to what happened over the weekend, because I want to talk Tech BYU with you in a minute, Scott, what sort of challenge do you think the Baylor Bears pose? Now, Utah, the line opened up. Utes favored by 9.5. It has not moved. Nobody's touching it. Utah's a 9.5-point favorite, even though it is a road game down in Waco, and typically Vegas builds in 3 points for the home team. So what the line means is Vegas believes on a neutral field, Utah's almost a 2-touchdown better team than Baylor. Of course, they've got a good quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. Dave Aranda is known as a defensive coach. They're not a great defensive team this year when you look at the metrics. They're coming off a win against UCF at home. UCF stinks, and they're also coming off a bye week just like Utah. So Utah, a healthy favorite on the road. What sort of challenges do you think Baylor poses, and how does Utah overcome them?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like Dave Aranda. He's a guy that's been on the verge of losing his job, and then he'll do something miraculous. And it's kind of how the team has played. They've played well enough to be dangerous, and you get teams late in the year playing, for next year or playing for whatever, and I really like Dave Aranda, and I have tremendous respect that he's still at Baylor, and with all that he's kind of been through. I just thought, boy, he's out the door there, and he's really found a way to survive, and when you have a coach like that, that's a dangerous team, and it's one you really have to respect. But it's one of those games where, the dimension of them throwing the football, I think, plays really well into Utah. The pass rush, these defensive backs, they'll be tested, but they've been tested by a lot of teams this year. It's kind of weird. It almost feels like Utah is more adept and prepared and capable of handling these spread offenses than they used to be, where they were like, you're not going to run the football against us. And so it's kind of strength on strength there. I love the diversity of the offense. There's some new players coming in, and I think having a bye week really helps for Utah to kind of get more of those guys familiar and comfortable, and even expand some of what they've been doing. And so I think Utah can be really explosive offensively. Quite frankly, it's one of those games where you go, well, you just stop the run and get them to pass, and it's almost like they go, well, we're willing to do that from the very beginning. If you can score a lot of points against Baylor, I think you'll have a really good day.
So if you dig into these numbers, as I referenced, which is a very un-Dave Aranda thing, Baylor's the second worst run defense in the conference. Colorado is the worst. And overall, when you look at the overall defensive numbers, if not just the rushing numbers, they're fourth worst in the conference. The worst defense is Oklahoma State, then it's Colorado, West Virginia, then it's the Baylor Bears. So overall, they're bad. But, I thought Cincinnati was susceptible to Utah's rushing attack, but according to the metrics, even Cincinnati has a much better run defense than the Baylor Bears do. What does that tell you about the approach on offense? Do you think Utah can keep this rolling with how dominant the ground game has been as of late?
Well, it absolutely should, and I love the diversity of the running game. Or maybe it's dynamic. I'm not sure which one describes it best, but it's a running game that can be explosive through a lot of players. I mean, you have Wayshawn Parker and Nakiri Rogers that can play pretty well. You've got a very explosive quarterback. You have a very explosive backup quarterback who's now kind of fitting in even more to the offense. You have Daniel Bray, who's another rusher. So Utah comes at you in a lot of different places with a lot of different people who are explosive, and it kind of spells disaster, because it's just for any defense. It's like, what do you stop? And Utah trying to figure out, okay, this is where the soft spot on the defense is, and then really attacking it, which I think Jason Beck has done a very good job of. And I think he's gotten more comfortable and figured out this offense as the season's gone on. So I look forward to Saturday and just seeing, okay, what creative way, what place, how are you going to attack this team? Because I think there's some very unique and dynamic ways that Utah rushes the football behind probably one of the best lines in the country.
So Utah, of course, on a bye, as we've discussed over the weekend. So not just the eyes locally, but the eyes of the college football world were down in Lubbock with College Game Day in the house, Patrick Mahomes as the celebrity picker. And all week long last week, Scott, and I had you on, the one thing BYU had to avoid was the very thing they did not avoid, and that is getting smoked. That was the issue. I mean, I felt like if Tech kicked a game-winning field goal with 30 seconds left, then BYU would have answered questions that people have about them, because the questions people have about BYU, they don't seem to have about Texas Tech. Texas Tech is the one team in the conference that the advanced metrics like and the rankings like. The rankings like BYU, the advanced metrics don't. The advanced metrics.
Watching a frog get boiled in a pot of water, and they just slowly through the game, you watch the Kansas State game, you watch the Utah game, you watch the BYU, you watch a lot of their games. They're kind of in it. They're kind of hovering around. Then you turn the ball over and they get 5 points on you, or 3 points here and 7 points there, and you're kind of in the game, but you're always just kind of fighting, keep your head above water. And then they just slowly, and then they break a big run or a big throw, and then all of a sudden they're up by 14, and then they're up by 17, and then they're up by 20 points, and you just go, where did this all happen? It's this slow boil. And the next thing you know, you're dead, and I think that's how they play, and I think it's because they're really good. I mean, they're just really, really good on defense, and so when you have your opportunities against them, you have to make your opportunities count, because you're not going to get more, and then their thing is just thriving off turnovers, and they feed off it. And they're also, I think, a opportunistic running team. They'll poke and they'll prod and they'll just find, and then they get real explosive with that running game. And they're probably more patient running the football as they've ever been as a spread offense traditionally. And they know they have this really good defense, and so they can be more patient. They don't have to just go up and down the field, track meet, score a bunch of touchdowns, and so they're really good. But BYU, BYU has to play, I almost want to say perfect every week. Like I wouldn't say they're the most talented team, but they're a team that usually doesn't beat itself, and they play hard, and they get the most out of what they have. And the quarterback, I think, has played beyond maybe his experience, and then he kind of came back to earth against Texas Tech. And so I don't think anyone's surprised at the outcome of the game. And it's okay to lose like the Utah or BYU did, but it's not okay for BYU to continue to lose. And I really, this will sound weird, but I think it's better for the conference. I think it's better for Utah if BYU continues to win out the rest of the season, because you want to show, hey, we have a conference of strong teams. I mean, if BYU's only loss this year is to Texas Tech, that's not bad. And I just think it helps, the image of the conference, because right now I think the ACC is going through kind of an image problem. Where there's just nobody that's really this elite team, and they're kind of cannibalizing each other. And I think if we, as a conference, can stay away from that from the rest of the season, I think it helps Utah to go, yeah, you were in a really good conference. The Big 12 was strong this year. There's 3 or 4, really, really good teams in the conference. And if BYU falls off a cliff, then everyone goes, yeah, BYU was kind of pretender all along. They really weren't that good. And then the loss to BYU for Utah just looks bad.
You may have already answered this question in a way with some of the dynamics you've outlined about Brigham Young, but I want to know your opinion as to why the advanced metrics continue to just not have a very high opinion of BYU. FPI, they're 17, which is right behind Vandy, right ahead of Michigan, but a big gap between Utah, Texas Tech, and BYU. And then S&P Plus, they're all the way down to 22. Penn State at 3-6 is 20. BYU is 22, just ahead of Illinois and Pitt. So, look, bottom line is they're 8-1. They've got head-to-head over Utah, and they could continue to win games and go straight to Arlington. So the metrics could be somewhat irrelevant. However, we do have to keep in mind the committee is looking at these as they try to figure out who the best teams are. Why do you think the advanced metrics do not favor BYU, Scott?
Well, I think that BYU is a team that there's nothing about BYU that I go, man, I want to watch. Like, man, this guy is exciting, or this guy's amazing. You watch the quarterback. He's such an anomaly. He's so weird, because he looks like this linebacker playing quarterback, and he looks like he shouldn't do what he does, especially throwing the football. And it's just it's an optical, like, kind of freaks me out. It's like, for me, it's like watching a left-handed quarterback throw a football. It just looks weird to me, and it's kind of how it is with him. And so I don't look at their team and I go, wow, there's something electric here. What it is it's like team ball at its highest level. It's this, everyone's just bought into kind of just giving my part, and you just, there's really nothing there, even defensively. There's the linebackers play hard, the secondaries, decent, and defensive lines decent. But I look at that whole team and I just go, there's nobody here. There's nothing here that just really impresses me, or go, okay, that raises my eyebrows on that one. And yet they just play so hard. And I really think they've had a charmed season so far, in that they were really fortunate to win some of the games. They had to fight and struggle against Colorado. They had to fight and struggle against Arizona. They were, out statisticked by Utah. And it had it been for, you can argue, should you kick the field goals and turning the ball over a couple of times, that game is different. So I just, I think Utah or BYU's gotten probably more than they probably should have out of the season so far. I mean, they've really, really lived a charmed life. And like I said, I hope that the charm doesn't, fall at this point in the season. And it's very easy. They could, maybe, losing to Cincinnati isn't the worst thing in the world, but I just think from an optics, it's better if BYU wins out the rest of the season. I think in the long run, Spence, it's so much better for Utah not to get to the conference championship game. The two teams that played for the national championship last year did not get to their conference championship games. And I would love a playoff game at home and win that, and then go play on a New Year's Day game and see where things go. And I think that's a real possibility.
Last thing, Scott, and I'll set you loose. And Sean and I had talked about this during Crosstalk, so I'm going to steal a little angle from that to ask you. I want you to put yourself in Joey McGuire's shoes, the head coach of Texas Tech. The team you most do not want to see across from you in the Big 12 championship game is who and why?
Oh, I don't think it's any question. It's Utah. I mean, Utah is hot right now. Utah is probably the team in the conference that can beat Texas Tech. I think you get Devin Dampier healthier. I think attacking them a little different than they did last game. And knowing who they are. I do not want to see Utah in the championship game. I don't think I don't. That's an easy answer, and I don't think it's one. I mean, I don't see another team in like Cincinnati's like no, BYU again is like no, and heck no, and I mean there's just not a team in the conference that other than Utah. And if Utah does play in the conference because it's just an extra game. You play in the conference championship and then you're still going to be in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to get to a bye seed if you're Utah and you win the conference in the Big 12. Maybe you do. I don't know, but it's just an extra game. It's a high risk. But if I'm Texas Tech, I don't want to play Utah.
Good stuff, Scott. Appreciate the time, man. Have a good week, and we'll chat soon, okay?
All right. Look forward to it. Thanks, Spence.
Scott Mitchell, former quarterback for the Utah Utes, played in the NFL for a number of different years as well. Always appreciate Scott's time. All right, before we catch a break, my guy Dave, America First Credit Union, live in studio. Dave, how are you, buddy?
So good. So great to be here with you.
I love having you in studio. I got my Pez. I'm ready to go. I'm going to save that for later tonight. Let's move over to a $300 credit card promotion that you guys have over at America First Credit Union right now. Unpack it for us.
Yeah, we have so many ways, Spence, to help you get your money working for you. And, this is just in time for the holidays where we're probably anticipating spending a little bit of extra money, but maybe we don't have the funds to do it right now. And so we are offering a $300 credit card offer. This offer is awesome where you can receive up to $300 cash bonus after you spend $3,000 within that first 90 days of opening up that new credit card. And when you think about the numbers, that's 10%. That's like getting a 10% discount or 10% cash back almost on the purchases that you make. And that's a pretty good offer for people who are going to be spending that money anyway.
Yeah, and there's no restrictions. It's $300. You can use it however you want.
However you want. If you want to pay some bills, if you want to reward yourself, do some extra shopping, then yeah, that $300 is yours to spend as you wish.
So we've talked about this, but let's revisit it. What makes you guys different? Why are you the choice? I mean, there are other credit unions out there as well, but for a listener out there that may have had the same issue that I ran into that I talked about earlier, I will leave the name of the national bank off air. But for a number of years, I simply was just with the bank that I chose because they had a reputation nationally that I thought was good. And once you get kind of entangled in with a bank that you don't necessarily love, it feels like a lengthy process to get out of the relationship. Maybe you have a money market. Maybe you have a checking and a savings. Maybe your child is attached to your account. But that is just really a lazy way of saying, I don't want to put in the work to have a better situation for me and my money. So if we have a listener out there or listeners out there that aren't satisfied with their current situation, why are you guys the choice?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up those pain points and how comfortable we are with dealing with the pain and complaining about it, but maybe not doing something about it.
And we're all busy, right?
Yeah. It takes a little bit to maybe change over that direct deposit. We try and make that very easy for you. Spence, we've been around since 1939, and we've grown into one of the largest credit unions in the nation. We're the largest in Utah. So we have the financial backing and support of a big national bank, but we have that local feel, that local touch that makes it feel like I'm important when I walk in. I love when people say, well, that's my branch. That's my credit union. America First, that's the manager that I go to. Or they will follow employees when they transfer from one location to another. There's really a sense of ownership that we create with our members. And it's that unique one-on-one experience that we love. We love to share. We love to hear people share that experience as well. And so America First does it right. We have all the products and services that a consumer might need and then some, as well as small businesses. We really are proud of how we work with those small businesses. When small businesses thrive, our community thrives. And 95% of employees work for a small business. And so that's a very important part of our segment. We have everything that will take you through from, just early stages of life, through families, through retirement. And just want to impress upon our listeners that we have the solutions that you might need. And, come on in and check us out. Take advantage of the $100 offer and, see what America First is about.
I think one of the things that is appealing about some of the stuff you've described is we live in a state with a lot of families and
big families.
Big families, right? And it's never too early. And, I could go on a diatribe about why we don't have finance classes in high school or college that really, you can take them, but like practical, this is how money works. This is what compound interest is. This is why you should start saving now. And I'm sure we have listeners with maybe 4 or 5 kids between the age of 12 and 17, right? How can you guys help them start to educate their children about how money works?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you asked that because we offer financial education, financial literacy programs for teachers. We can come into the schools and teach them about that. But if I were a parent and I were just to go look at the website, I could see that we have products that are tailored to that younger group of people. I can open up a youth account, link my account to their account. I can see where they're spending. I can transfer my money to them. I can get them a debit card, and that seems weird giving a minor or a young person a debit card, but cash used to be king.
Yeah, I got to teach them.
Really, money is it's information now, and so I can teach them how to use money wisely and spend wisely and save wisely by all the different tools and things that we have. So the youth account, we have a great offer right now. If they open up a new account, then we're going to give you $50 just to start them out.
I stopped at a coffee shop last week and I tried to pay with a $20 bill. And she's like, "We don't." I was like, "Wait, what? This doesn't work anymore?" Like, it's a new world and it's always changing, right? And it's the only way to keep up is to educate yourself.
Yeah. That financial education will pay dividends for life.
Yeah.
So become educated. We got the great tools and products to teach you.
Dave, you're the man.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Go to AmericaFirst.com or stop by any of their branches. They have 87 branches in Utah. Our good friends at America First Credit Union. All right, in about an hour from now, we'll let you hear from Coach Witt. Head football coach, Utah Utes. Utes back at it. Addressed the media earlier today. We're going to bring that to you. But Smitty's going to join us live in studio coming up after a quick break on a Monday edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 700. What a perfect bump for our next guest, because when I think Richard Smith, I think dangerous.
There you go.
Yeah, I think
That's
danger. Smitty, live in studio. Hello, sir. Happy Monday.
Spence, same to you. And you don't know, in this next hour, you don't know where it's going to go. This thing could go all over the board.
Yeah.
And so that's the danger, and that's also the excitement of live radio, especially when you have me in the studio. You have no idea what direction this is going to go in.
I'm just going to use a line from Bowler and say, buckle up. I mean, we're buckling up with Smitty live in studio. What's the latest? Give us the update. What's been going on, man? How are you?
Man, we're doing good. I was able to go last weekend. We were not this past weekend before. We were down in Las Vegas. Went to a show. Went to see the Raiders. Saw the kid from Jacksonville kick the 68-yard field goal.
You were there for that. Oh, that's cool.
I mean, that was. And I'll tell you what, that thing didn't go about more than 15 feet off the ground. That thing was a line drive. But it just kept going, and it was a good 5 yards by the crossbar. I mean, he tagged it, and of course he had hit one from 70. Yeah, during the preseason, and then we went to the doubleheader last weekend, and they kicked off the college basketball season at T-Mobile, with Arizona, Florida, and then the BYU Villanova game. So those are two good games to see the beginning of the college basketball season, and then we're watching the Jazz and trying to figure out what's going on with them. And they laid such a big egg on Friday in Minneapolis, but they get a chance to rebound tonight against the same team. So we'll see what happens with them. So a lot of stuff going on in between college football with BYU and the Utes back in action this week down in Waco. So a lot of stuff happened.
How's our guy Britt? How's our guy Britton Johnson?
Hey, so I'm at the game in Las Vegas. And for the last 5 minutes of the first half, there's some guy who's just yapping, sitting like right behind me, and he's talking to some guy, and he's like every play, he's got like a comment or a diagram or something, something. And finally, I said to myself, that sounds like a familiar voice, but I'm not going to turn around and see what's going on until halftime. So I did that, waited. And then I turned around, and it was Britton sitting right behind me. Yeah. And so we got to catch up and visited during the course of the second half. He's living in St. George now full time. Yep. And so he was there with a couple of friends of his from work and stuff, and had driven down for the game. So it's good to see him and catch up with him. And he was reminding me of all the good times you guys had doing the Jazz stuff back in the day. And, yeah. No,
he's become a dear friend, so I appreciated you sending me that pic, so I was able to reconnect with him. We were talking before the segment. You and I were both watching some college football over the weekend, and so we'll get to some college hoops, we'll get to some Jazz, but the dynamic of the magnitude of a moment is always interesting to me, and whether or not a team can rise to meet it or a player can rise to meet it when the lights are at its brightest. And I always remind our listeners, these are young kids. These are 18 to 22, 23-year-old. Yeah, there's some RMs that are 25, 26 or whatever. And it brings such a wild card when it comes to college football. Like, can you step up and meet a moment when the eyes of America are on you like they were with BYU and Texas Tech? The one thing they had to avoid was, unfortunately, the thing that actually happened. Were you surprised to see Tech roll the way they did?
Yeah, because BYU's been playing so solidly all year. Texas Tech has a terrific team, as obviously they're proving to everybody. I thought BYU would play better. I'm not sure if it was them or if it was just that Texas Tech was so riled up and ready to go and wanting to prove that they were the better team on the field, which they did on Saturday, and they were and it wasn't, Spence, they kicked 5 field goals in the red zone. Was what was it? Was it 29-7?
29-7, yeah.
The final score could have easily, without any stretch, could have been 45-7. I mean, if they had scored a couple touchdowns instead of field goals, and so I mean they were that dominant that game, and the Bachmeier kid. Was stymied. He had a hard time getting anything going, which I was a little bit surprised at. But I think it was just a testament to more to Texas Tech and how tough they are and how good of a team they are. And now we'll see how BYU is able to bounce back this week.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing was last year BYU kind of had the same opportunity, and they lost a couple of straight. Now, that was after the Utah game. You just can't let Tech beat you twice because it was so deflating. You could see it on the players and the coaches' faces. And the players and the coaches, and look, Chase stepped up to the podium after the game and said, we want to see him again, and this time we're going to beat him. Respect it. But, there was a lot of like, hey, we left a lot out on the field. And I'm like, dude, to your point, they kicked 5 field goals. But most people, including myself, were expecting a little bit more of a rock fight. When the line came out as BYU at minus 10.5 underdog, I went, well, that doesn't feel right. Tech doubled the spread. And that was the only thing BYU couldn't have happen. And now the challenge moving forward is just don't let them beat you twice because you still have everything in front of you.
Yeah, I have a feeling they'll be fine. I have that was one of those games that they just got outmatched. Okay, they got out-toughed, if that's a phrase you want to use. Texas Tech just kept coming at him, and that defense was great. And the Rodriguez kid was terrific, and but Jack Kelly was great too.
He's a beast.
He was terrific
he's
too.
A beast.
But they're just it was one of those days. They just got stymied by a team that was playing better than them, and home crowd and all that stuff, and Mahomes is up there and whatever, and so I think BYU will be fine. I think they're going to have a test. TCU is not a pushover. And that's going to be a tough test for them. And then they got to go back east and the time zone thing and play at Cincinnati the following week. And that's going to be a tough game because Cincinnati is still playing for a lot of stuff too.
They only have one conference loss. Yeah, they're still in the mix.
So we always tend to look at these things from the purview of the team that we're close to or next to and following and not taking into account, like Jerry Sloan always used to say, well, the other guys practice too,
They're
and
trying
the other
to
guys
win,
have a game plan too,
Yeah.
So that's good, but that's what makes it interesting. The great part about it is, Spence, you got both Utah and BYU. It's the middle of November, and they're still in the mix for a lot of stuff, and so that makes the games even more compelling.
Yeah, if you're a college football fan and you make it nearly to Thanksgiving with things still on the table, there's a lot to be grateful for, just to say that. One thought on Utah before we move over. Now every team gets 2 byes. And part of me wonders if this bye came at, just a time that's not great based off the momentum. I mean, Smitty, I was on the sidelines for both Colorado and Cincinnati. Those games were over at halftime. This team is rolling right now. Any concern about a bye week getting in the way or, Baylor Bears coming up Waco on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think for me it's more about playing in Waco, playing a Baylor team that still, again, you're talking about a team that's kind of a little bit up and down, but they have a solid record. They're still in the hunt for some things. They still got to get bowl eligible and trying to play well. Utah's coming in. Utah's going to be favored. Going to have a lot of people talking about them going in there. And as we know, whenever you're a home team and everybody's talking about the other team coming in, that even gives you more incentive to get up for the game and show what you can do. And so, even though, you think, well, the way that Utah's been playing, these next 3 games on their schedule should be games that they can handle. Hey, you still got to go out and do it. You still got to play the game. You still got to show, what you got and that you can bring it at a time when it matters. And that's, we were talking off the air just before about the kid at Indiana. Fernando Mendoza, the kid who transferred from Cal, and the opportunity he had, and in that Penn State game, and they got 2 minutes to go, no timeouts. In the first play, he gets sacked, and so it looks like, well, Penn State may do this, and then the kid rose up and boom, 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 right down the field.
Very impressive.
And then of course the Omar Cooper makes the probably the catch of the year, and. Is there still, in fact, is that a rule in college football? Like when it happened, I thought, I don't care if his foot's in or not, the defender grabbed him and pushed him out of bounds before he had a chance.
Yeah, it's still a rule.
So is that still a rule?
It is, yep.
So I didn't know that. I never heard the broadcasters mention that hey, it's going to count anyway because you got forced out of bounds kind of thing without the chance to come down. So anyway, but that was an unbelievable catch by him. He went super high to get that, and Indiana's on one of those magical rolls that looks like, maybe they can keep it going all the way to the championship game in the Big Ten with Ohio State and with everything riding on the line.
Yeah, we had Joe Cravens in studio, a buddy of yours that you know well, and he's an Indiana native. And, who would have ever thought the Indiana Hoosiers would have one of the best football teams in the country?
Hey, that's it's been a quick turnaround.
It has.
Kurt Signetti came in last year and got some guys in there, including this kid, the Mendoza kid from Cal. And, they've done a quick turnaround. He's 21-2 now in his 2 years there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not chopped liver, especially in the Big Ten for a school that's always been a basketball school and has always been a so-called afterthought in Big Ten football. And you love to see those kind of programs come up and play well and then take advantage of the situations when they're in front of them and be able to perform in them.
I wanted to talk to you about something we kind of chopped it up with Joe about, and that's kind of the anatomy of a coach and what makes great coaches. And it's just always been fascinating to me that typically the best players, a lot of them never even try, but the ones that have don't seem to be the type of coaches that are able to win rings and hang banners like the best coaches. And this is not just a basketball thing. I mean, I think it's a football thing too. Jerry Sloan was an excellent NBA player. I'm not saying he wasn't, but Jerry Sloan wasn't Jerry West, right? Or Steve Kerr, Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, good pros. Steve was a role player on some of the best teams in the history of basketball, but you don't see Carl coaching or John coaching. You do see a Jeff Hornacek giving it a whirl. What sort of characteristics have you seen over the years that actually do translate, that lead to men that become great coaches?
Well, I mean, to be great coaches, both Jerry Sloan and Frank Lade, you say this all the time, the coaches are made by the players you have.
Sure.
And so you have to have good players. Phil Jackson, for being an 11-time NBA championship coach and all the accolades that he's received and deserved over the years. He was smart enough. He was in Chicago. They had Jordan. They drafted Pippen. They got a couple other guys. They got it rolling. Okay, triangle offense, whatever. But they had the players that could produce when the time came. Then he was smart enough when that era ended to look around and go, who's the next best team with the next best young guys? Oh, the Lakers. Oh, they got Shaq and Kobe Bryant. Maybe I'll go over there and continue to be a great coach, And he did that, and they did the same thing. And so you have to have the players, you have to have the horses, so to speak, to be able to produce at the highest level. And the coaches that are great coaches are the ones that manage the egos, the Chuck Daly's, who come to mind, who had very good teams, but also had the knack for managing egos and managing guys, off the court, so that when they got on the court, they could play free and play the kind of game that brought their skills and talent up to the highest level. And if you're able to do that, and you have those kind of players on in your group, then you have a chance to be successful most nights.
Yeah, I mean, your point has to be underscored, and I think every great coach, maybe with the exception of Phil, who I think led to a lot of people eye-rolling quite a bit when he would wax philosophical, including Jeff Van Gundy calling him Big Chief Triangle, which I always loved. I think most every great coach would admit, without my talent, Luke Walton went, 34-1? With the Warriors players after Steve took a leave, something like that, So you gotta have the horses,
right? Yeah. And I remember, Spence, I think I mentioned on the show before that, one of my early memories and working for the Jazz years and years ago, playing against the Lakers in the playoffs, and the Lakers were doing some different scouting type things and with technology at the time, and a reporter had kept asking Pat Riley about whether that was giving them an advantage, and they said, it's got to give you an advantage. I don't know. Well, and then finally Pat Riley said, well, I really think the advantage that we have, if any, is that we have Kareem and Magic. And if you have Kareem and Magic, then you roll it out and you see what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's really what it gets down to, especially at the professional level. I think in any sport, if you got the guys like the Dodgers showed this year. Again, you could argue that Toronto outplayed them from beginning to end over the course of a 7-game series, but the Dodgers made the plays when they had to make them, and they had the guys in position to do that, and that's why they're the back-to-back World Series champions.
All right, we'll catch a quick break. Coming up on the other side, Smitty went to Vegas to see the opening of the college basketball season. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw with BYU and AJ Debonsa. I want to ask you about Koa Pete, this kid that's playing for Arizona. We'll get into some Jazz basketball, and then we'll talk some Utes as well. Does Alex Jensen have the characteristics that Smitty has seen in the past that makes a great head coach? But my guy Dave, once again, America First Credit Union, live in studio. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
So good. Good to be here.
One of the things I appreciate about you guys, and we're a sports talk radio show, so chances are if you're listening, you are a sports fan. It's not that hard. You are the official credit union of the University of Utah. So for our Ute fan listeners, you can get early access to Rice Eccles Stadium. You get great deals on tickets. But let's talk about this limited edition Jazz Affinity card, Dave. Tell us about it.
Yeah, there it is.
It's nice.
What do you think, Smitty?
Smitty will appreciate that because it's the Jazz note and it's purple.
Beautiful
nice.
purple color.
Very nice.
It's a quality card.
Yeah.
And it shows the quality of someone who's got that in their wallet because they want to spend who they cheer for. So we're excited to roll this one out. This is our fifth iteration of the Affinity card with the Utah Jazz. And it's an awesome thing to be able to have in your wallet. Like you said, it gives you good deals and discounts when you go in and you're looking for that in-arena experience. Some of those discounts would be when you link that card to your Jazz app, then you can get 10% off purchases in select concessions, and you can get 15% off at the team store when you're looking for your nice Utah Jazz merch. Get you in early. You get to go watch the team warm up a little bit earlier than other fans would, and there's just awesome, great things that come. It's just action packed.
The early entry is cool because I say this all the time. Like, one of my favorite things back when I was working over with the Jazz is I would make sure to get down early to watch like Dirk Nowitzki shoot jumpers. Or this, like Steph Curry's warm-ups are famous, but you're not going to be able to see that unless you get in a little bit early. That's one of my favorite things about this offer.
Yeah, I think that's good for a dad who's taking his boys there to go watch a game. You get to see that in a more intimate and more personal way. Mm-hmm. I think that's just a great benefit to have.
Now, this is the year where somebody is going to get a triple-double, right, Smitty? Somebody's going to get a triple-double for the Jazz this year, right?
Yeah, it could happen.
It could happen.
It could happen in some blowout situation.
Okay, and if that happens, Dave, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's happened a couple times. I think Boozer was one of those, and then it happened a couple years ago.
Did Donovan get it? Maybe Gobert. I don't think anyone on this team's got it.
No,
it's been a while,
but we're hoping. But yeah, the day after that triple double happens, then you can get 32% off on merchandise when the Jazz hits a triple double. So we're excited about that. We're cheering for that. We hope it happens because we want to give that offer to as many people who have that affinity card.
And that's a big discount because some of that merch is super expensive. Tell us about America First Fridays. What does this mean?
We're really excited this year to be able to partner with the Utah Jazz. And if you're connected to the Jazz and they've got your email, your contact information, you've got the Jazz app, then on the first Friday of every month, it's an America First Friday. And they will send you notice of upcoming deals that are coming up. And that could be merchandise or ticket offers or, there's a whole slew of things that will be coming up throughout the season. And so be watching out for those deals because those are really great things that families and fans can take advantage of.
Now, finally, before we catch a break, this is a great time for people that do want to make the switch. Tell us about these new member offers you guys have.
Yeah, it is a great time to be able to join America First. And so when you come on in and open up an account, a savings and a checking account, we're going to give you $100. No strings attached. It's just our way of saying, come try us out, and we guarantee that you'll have a great experience. So come take advantage of that.
There you go. So go to AmericaFirst.com. You can also stop in by any of the 87 local branches they have here in the state. So our good friends at America First. Dave, good to see you, buddy.
Thanks so much, Spence.
Catch a break. More with Smitty coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. We got Smitty live in studio for one more segment. We're going to move into the 5 o'clock hour of the program where you're going to hear from Coach Witt. Kyle Whittingham addressing the media earlier today because it is game week for the Utes after a bye last week. Scott Mitchell rolls by. We'll say goodnight at 6 o'clock on this show. And then Utah men's basketball tonight against Holy Cross. The Utes are off to a 2-0 start. It was an overtime clash against Weber over the weekend at the Huntsman Center. So, Smitty, we were talking about kind of the characteristics, just generally speaking, of what makes a great coach. And, yes, it always helps if you have players that know how to play basketball. Alex Jensen, a guy that you've known for a long, long time now, has taken over at the helm for the Utes. And love Al, his wife, Natalie. I'm really pulling for him, and I hope it works. I know it's going to take a minute, but you've had a chance to see him, talk to him. Tell our listeners what you know about Alex Jensen, just in your confidence level as far as him becoming a great head college basketball coach.
Well, he's gonna fall into the same category as we were talking about before the break, Spence. He's got to get players. He's got to be able to recruit. He and his staff. He's built a very good, solid staff in covering all the areas of recruiting. He's got Eric Daniels, the son of Donnie Daniels, longtime college coach, who Eric has all the ties with all the high school coaches in the state of Utah. So he knows those guys in and out, and he knows how to get in, with the top players in the Utah high school level. He's got Rafael Chilius, who is tied in with the AAU program all over the country, and it really has a grassroots knowledge of all the main coaches in the AAU system, the EYBL system, all that stuff that he can get to in terms of recruiting and get in on guys. And then he's got Martin, who is from Germany, who Alex has worked with over in the German national team, who's done a terrific job recruiting and having that recruiting base in Europe of trying to get guys over and having interested in the Utah program from overseas. So he's got these guys who are in place who can help him with recruiting. This year, I think, my opinion, is that it's going to be fairly similar to the team that you saw last year. It's different guys, but I think the talent level is might be maybe half a notch better. But I don't think it's going to be a lot different in terms of what they end up accomplishing during the course of the year. I think they might play a little bit better, but their talent level really isn't Big 12 level, competitive level, in my opinion. But that was because they had to cobble together a roster in April and May from guys who were willing to leave other programs and weren't able to get into that full recruiting cycle like they will now. So now they'll be able to, they're already in recruiting in those different areas, and they'll be able to start building their base for their team going forward. I think this year is just a year where they're going to get their system in place. They're going to get guys who figure out what they want to have done, how they want to play, and they'll have maybe a handful of holdovers going into next year, and then hopefully get some new talent and then some new guys in the program, and then start getting it building up, block by block. It's tough. The Big 12 is one of the better conferences in college basketball, and they're going to be they're recruiting against the Arizonas and the Kansases and the Baylors and all the top teams, even the teams when you go back east. Cincinnati, Central Florida always has a solid program with Johnny Dawkins as the head coach. So you got a lot of teams in that conference that are good, solid basketball teams, and it's going to take the Utes a while to get on that level in terms of the talent, but that's where it's going to take. Alex can coach. He was a G League Coach of the Year early on in his pro career. He had the best defensive team in the G League that year. He showed that he knows what he's doing. Obviously, he's comes from the Rick Majerus tree of coaching and what you have to do to be able to have success on the floor. He just needs to get talent with his team, and that's going to take him along with Wes Wilcox, who's the GM now for the Utah basketball program, going to take them a while to get those guys in house, and then we can see what they can do with talent going forward.
So you referenced the Big 12. Last year, I think the SEC was the best conference in college basketball. This year, it might be the Big 12. But if you look at it, the Big 10 has 6 teams in. Purdue is 2. Michigan is 6. Illinois is 14. UCLA is 15. Michigan State is 17. Wisconsin is 24. I believe the SEC the SEC conference as of now, I think they have 5 teams in the top 25. Bama is 8. Kentucky is 9. Florida is 10. They fell because of their loss. Then Arkansas, Auburn, Tennessee is also in the top 25. But if you look at the Big 12, Smitty, it might be the best conference in America this year. Of course, we were talking 1 or 2 games being played. But the 6 teams that the Big 12 has in right now, they've got the number 1 team in the country, Houston, full of just grown men, quite frankly. Arizona is 5, who you saw. Brigham Young is 7. They've got Texas Tech at 11. They also utilize money for their basketball program, too. Iowa State is 16, and Kansas is down to 25, but I think they'll climb back up. I know it's early, but do you feel like maybe the Big 12 is back to being the best conference in college basketball this year?
Well, Spence, it's the it's not even the middle of November, and teams have played a couple of games, so we'll have a better feel for that. When January comes and teams have had 10 or 12 games under their belt and have played some other teams, so that's going to be the fun part, is seeing how these things shake out as time goes on. Of course, you hope nobody has injuries, but everybody always has something they have to deal with in that regard. BYU is going to be interesting to watch, even in their non-conference games, because they've set up a very good non-conference schedule in terms of teams they're playing. So it's going to be fun to watch them play early in the season before they even get to the Big 12 conference games, and we'll have a pretty good idea of how their team stacks up, because they'll be playing some good teams in November and December. Yeah,
they already played Villanova, and maybe Nova isn't who they were under Jay Wright, but a good team out of the Big East. They survived that, a game that you saw. BYU, they smoked Holy Cross, the team that Utah has tonight, but they've got Delaware in Provo tomorrow. And then is the UConn game, it's not at the Garden.
No, it's at I think it's on campus in
is it at Stewart? Okay.
I think
it's a neutral site game, but I'll look at that. But they do play UConn, who's the number 3 team in the country. Wisconsin, top 25 team. Miami, they see Clemson. Yeah, this is a pretty legitimate non-conference schedule that Kevin has put together.
Yeah, and he put that together, kind of like a Gonzaga type preseason schedule where he wanted to play whoever he could schedule.
It's in Boston.
It's at TD Garden, right? Yeah, okay, that's right. It's in Boston. So they're as much as you consider that a neutral site game for UConn, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're playing in Boston because of the Debanza kid. That's where he's from. And so they're scheduling games like Gonzaga does out of conference, where they're saying, hey, we'll play whoever we can get on schedule, whoever play us, and we'll go wherever. And because we want to play the best teams, and we want to see what we got. And Spence, that's how you roll over into recruiting. So if you can look at that kind of a schedule, and then you look at you're going out and recruiting kids, you say, look at the schedule we're playing now. And if you come and play with us next year, we're going to try and add some other teams that would be legitimate teams in the non-conference schedule, and we'll try and get a game maybe in your home area. If you're from Mississippi, we'll try and get a game with Ole Miss or Mississippi State or something, that kind of thing that appeals to kids, and you try and build off your program that way, and your program just gets better, and you start getting more respect for what you're doing, like Gonzaga has all these years, and playing whoever they could play out of the WCC schedule, and it's shown that they've had great success in the NCAA tournament when it comes to that, because they've had those kind of games they've been able to play early in the year that help their team figure out where they're at and what they need to do to get better as the season goes on.
Do you so Utah's non-conference schedule is more or less unserious?
Yes.
Do you like that, just to allow Al to ease in a little bit, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, I think it's all, this year is really just a get your feet on the ground type of year. So they didn't schedule any real quote unquote schools in that regard. In my opinion, they're trying to get some wins under their belt. I remember 100 years ago, Rick Majerus came to me one time and because of some connections I had around the country, and he said, hey, I'm having a hard time getting guys playing me, and he said, if you can get me a game with any of the so-called big boys, no matter where it is, I don't care where it is, I'll give you $5,000. He told me, as a finder's fee.
Huh.
If you can get me Kentucky, you can get me Kansas, you can get me UCLA, they won't play us. But if you know any guys at any of those schools, which I knew some guys, but it never worked out in that regard. But he was serious. He was like always looking for teams to play and wanting to go play them wherever it was to try and see what kind of team he had, and to also help with the recruiting process to to get better players to come to your program. And Kevin Young's been able to do that with his connections in the NBA in terms of getting recruits. Obviously, he got the Demon kid last year. Now this year he's got the Debanza kid. And as long as they play those kind of high-profile teams in the non-conference, and then they're playing in a big boy conference like the Big 12, if you can have some success, that's going to help breed your recruiting ground and help you to have a stable footing when it comes to trying to get guys to come to your program. And that's the task that Alex Jensen and Wes Wilcox have in front of them, is trying to establish that kind of footing in the Big 12.
So as a guy that scouted talent for a number of years to try to figure out whether or not they could play in the league, we'll do a little bit of Jazz. Man, the NBA Cup is so boring. That court, the Minnesota Jazz game I had to turn it off. It was like a headache. It's like lime green.
NBA Cup. Come on, Spence.
When you look at AJ, so AJ 21 against Villanova, fifth most in a college debut by the ESPN number one player, joining RJ Barrett, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, Anthony Davis back against Marist in 2011. So 21 points right out of the gates. I've talked about this. My favorite thing so far about him is he doesn't appear to be entitled. I mean, for a young kid that's already a multimillionaire, has a bunch of different, not just what BYU's paying him millions of dollars in NIL and whatever the school allocates based off their $20.5 million budget that they can pay players. He's got deals with Red Bull. I mean, he's a multimillionaire right now. He's been told by everybody that he's the next big thing. And in the past, I feel like there are a lot of kids in that situation that would show up being entitled, but he plays hard. He seems to play hard. He seems to get it. But as a guy that analyzes and has analyzed in the past about whether or not, they'll be great pros, what stands out most to you about AJ?
Well, he plays with a lot of energy. And the thing I like about him, outside of his talent, his skill, his basketball acumen, is that he plays with a certain level of joy and enthusiasm, and you don't see that a lot, Spence, from guys who have been playing since they were 12, 13, 14, playing basketball 365 days a year. When they get to this level, sometimes it gets a little boring for them. Sometimes they're not as enthusiastic to be out there playing because it's just another day. But he actually seems like he enjoys the competition. He enjoys playing with his teammates. You see him. One of the things we always would look for is when they come off the floor on a timeout. As they approach the bench, as they're sitting on the bench during the timeout, are they engaged? Are they talking to the teammates? Are they aloof? Are they grousing at somebody about something that didn't go right on the floor? What have you. And he always seems like he has a positive spirit about him and a joy about him. And when I was at practice a couple weeks ago, and I saw that same thing in practice, when they got into this shooting drill that they had, and chose up teams and had on different sides of the court, and typical shooting drills that teams do, speed drills. Kevin Young came over to me, and we were sitting there, and he said, can you believe, like, we do all this stuff in practice and all these drills and everything, and then you get in this silly shooting game like you would have in the driveway at your home with the other kids in the neighborhood who can make 10 to get to 10 first, and you're chasing the balls down and you're running back and forth and you're throwing them up and you're knocking the other guy's ball away and whatever, all those kind of kid games. He goes, these guys are having the most fun in practice doing this thing.
That's great.
Like they're in the backyard.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what you have to do to keep their interest level and and enthusiasm about it, because that's what they all got involved in the beginning doing when they were 8, 9, 10 years old in the driveway or in the schoolyard. And he was right in the middle of all that, yelling and hooping and hollering and yelling at his teammates in a positive way and laughing and all that. And it looks like he's one of those kids. You hope he doesn't lose that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, his parents were at the game in Vegas, and they were sitting courtside. Dad was in a nice suit and tie, and his mom was in a dress. It looked like they had just come from a Sunday church meeting of some sort or whatever, and they seem to be very nice parents and have their son well grounded. It seems like, and he looks like, both in that regard and from his skill level and talent, that he's going to be the real deal.
Yeah, I believe Jamaican immigrants, right? His dad is in law enforcement. I think his mother was an educator, if I read. I wonder how deep do you dive when you're analyzing a prospect? Like a kid like AJ or Darren Peterson. I mean, obviously the Boozer kid, there's a tie because Booze played here and he's actually working for the team now, which might be calculated. And if it is, I'm not mad at it. But these are decisions that when you make as a pro basketball team, if you have a top 3 pick, it's like do or die. You've got to knock that out of the park. Take us through how deep you go. Background, interviews, like what does that look and sound like?
Yeah, well, you you do all that stuff, Spence. Sometimes you feel like you're working for the CIA or the FBI or something as you're trying to dig into guys' backgrounds and you go, we've had times where we had one of our staff go to a school and spend 3 days on the campus just wandering around, talking to teachers, librarians, people who run the residence halls, campus security, whoever you could get to talk to you about, this kid and trying to figure out, what they were all about and what other people thought of them, when the lights weren't on, obviously digging into their background and what their where they come from and what their family situation is like and all that kind of stuff. And some of the best information you could get along the way is the information from other coaches who did not coach him directly but had recruited him or had been following him trying to recruit them and didn't get them.
Oh, interesting.
Because then they have a more objective idea about who the kid is, and if you can get to them and know who they are, and you go, hey, what's the deal with the kid? Oh, we were on him since he was 11 years old, and we're following him, and his uncle is really the guy who's in charge, and, if you want to really know what's going on, you got to talk to the uncle because, his mom and dad are okay, but, sometimes the dad isn't there, but it's the uncle who he really relies on, and he's the guy you got to get to find out exactly what makes the kid tick and whatever. So you find those kinds of things out that always help you in the final evaluation, because anybody can watch film, anybody can watch a game live, anybody can give you an opinion on whether he has a jump shot or he hustles or he plays hard or he defends or he doesn't get over the screen or whatever it is. But if you can find out what makes them go and what they're all about, are they about the game itself? Are they about the effort? Are they about their teammates? Are they about themselves? Are they about the attention they get? Are they about the cheerleader or the girl sitting up in the 8th row during the game? All those things go into that evaluation process, because exactly what you mentioned, when you're picking at the top of the draft especially, you got to hit it, and you cannot miss, and you can't afford to leave some stone unturned. So you got to make sure you know all the stuff you're getting into before you get into it and be ready to deal with it accordingly.
All right, before I set you loose, sat down to watch a little Jazz T-Wolves over the weekend. The NBA Cup, it's fantastic. I got up to make a sandwich, and it was 19-2.
Yeah.
At the end of the first, it was 43-15.
Okay, and then you took a nap on the couch, and then you woke up, and then it was 40.
I turned it off at halftime. They lost by 40. I don't know, man. They've lost 5 of 6 after that statement win against the Clips opening night.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the Jazz?
Well, this is going to be an interesting week, Spence, because they've got 3 games in 4 days at home. Then they got another home game on Sunday. They're going to have a chance to get a little home cooking if they can right the ship from the debacle that was Friday night in Minneapolis against a good T-Wolves team that'll be in here tonight. They'll have a chance to show if they're making improvement or not. The problem early in the season here, these first 9 games, is that they're showing that they're the same poor defensive team that they've been the last few years. And so at some point, Spence, you got to be able to sit down and look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, we either don't have the right players, or they're not listening to the coaches, or the coaches aren't coaching them up the right way to be able to play effectively, or they're just not being held accountable. Something isn't right in the water, because they don't seem to be making any discernible progress with being a better defensive team. And so now, and again, it's early in the season. Okay, we'll see where they stand in January, but it's the early returns aren't good in terms of how they're playing defensively. It looks like they're just trying to outscore teams, and if that's the recipe, then it's going to be another long year for them. They've really got to figure that stuff out and do so in a fairly quick time frame.
Some old buddies in town tonight: Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, Mike Conley, the Minnesota Timberwolves on Tuesday. Well, so back-to-back. Tomorrow, Indiana's in town. And then Quinn comes back. Quinn Snyder and the Atlanta Hawks. And then it is Chicago on Sunday. So we got 5 of the next 6, actually 6 of the next 7 at home. Yep. Quick trip to the Lakers next week, then OKC and the Lakers at home coming up next week.
Yeah.
All right, Smitty. Well, great to see you, my friend. Thanks for the insight. We'll
Thanks,
chat
Spence.
soon.
Good to be with you, man.
That's our guy, Richard Smith. Also, our guy is Dave from America First Credit Union, live in studio. Hello, Dave. How are you?
So good.
All right, we have talked about this, but let's hit it hard now that we're approaching the 5 o'clock hour. If we have some listeners out there that are a little bit disappointed with their current banking situation, first of all, breaking news: money is important, whether you like it or not. It just is, and we all probably want a little more of it, or all, probably want more knowledge to help us understand how we can maximize what we are making. So I told this anecdote earlier. For a number of years, I was with one of the big national banks. I will leave the name off air. I had an issue pop up that was very real. I could not get any help, and so I just left them. There are probably a lot of listeners that are in a similar spot, thinking like, I don't necessarily love this spot that I'm in right now, but man, getting untangled from my bank feels like it's complicated. How can you help our listeners through that process, and why is America First Credit Union the spot for them?
Yeah, that word that you just used, untangled. It seems like sometimes a financial institution just has you by its, death grip. And that's not the case. Sometimes it's apathy or just lazy, or we just don't know that there's better solutions. And we want to show our members and future members that joining America First is a very, very good financial decision. We've got some great offers that are going on right now, a membership offer where we'll give you $100 for opening up a savings and a checking account. And that's it. It's very, very simple. But there's definitely good reasons why you might want to go with some place that's local, that has local ties. America First has the financial strength of a nice big national organization, but 87 locations all across Utah to help you walk and navigate through your financial journey, give you the good tools and the resources, give you good rates, give you good advice and guidance, whether it's direct deposit and certificates of deposit or dedicated savings or the mobile app. There's so many good things. We take member security and members' information very, very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're putting the power in the pockets of our members. And so for me, it's a very good, wise choice to be able to join the credit union.
Official credit union of the University of Utah, early access to Rice-Eccles Stadium, special deals on tickets, a great new Jazz Visa card where you get into the Delta Center early. You get discounts on merch and concessions. And also, Dave, we live in a market with a lot of families. And I'm sure there are parents out there, maybe they didn't get the coaching that they needed from their parents. Maybe they weren't taught about money when they were young. So maybe they just don't know how to teach their children about money, but it's never too early. Tell us about the offer you have for teens as well at America First.
Yeah, we've got some great accounts for all ages. Even a 1-year-old could qualify for an account. It's a great opportunity for a parent or a grandparent to be able to start their kid out on the right path. As that child gets older, start teaching them about saving and about spending. You can link your account with your child's account. You can get that teen a funds card, a teen debit card, and teach them how to use their money rather than just cash or rather than prepaid cards. Get something that makes sense to you and your child, in teaching them those financial resources. And we love to provide financial education. We've got a great financial literacy program through our charitable foundation that we go into schools and teach people about that. And we would welcome educators, teachers, parents, community leaders to come and search us out and say, hey, what services or what information could you provide? We'll be happy to respond to that. But teach those kids at an early age and give them the tools and resources to be successful in the future.
So $100 for new members, opening up checking savings, $50 for teens up to 17 as well. Last thing for this hit, I wanted to bring it back around because it kind of hit me, and I think it's important to talk about what you're offering. The government shutdown continues, and there are a lot of people that are being adversely affected as a result of either being furloughed or out of work altogether. What are you guys offering as far as this government shutdown furlough loan offer?
Yeah, we have tailored a product specifically for those individuals who are negatively impacted because of the government shutdown, and they've missed paychecks. And that's a hard thing to go through. There's a lot of people that live paycheck to paycheck or only maybe one or two paychecks away from disaster. And so we have some furlough loan assistance that they can come in and they can make up that paycheck. We've done that up to 3 paychecks, and there's either no interest or very little interest. It's a very low interest rate. They don't have to pay on any of those, at least for the first 30 days, 45 days from when that's funded. We're hoping that government shutdown goes away quickly, but it's an easy process. We've simplified the process, not overlooked, but we've simplified to qualify for that. And not every financial institution is willing to take on that risk, but we know that these are good people, good, strong families that are just trying to get by without those paychecks. So come on into America First and let us help you.
Go to americafirst.com for all the information or stop by one of their 87 Utah branches today. Dave, thanks, buddy.
Thanks so much.
All right, we'll catch a break. Coach Witt coming up on the other side if you missed it from earlier, and then we'll send it over to Utah basketball against Holy Cross at about 7 o'clock. A lot to do. Monday Drive, 5 o'clock hours next on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time, Monday afternoon style. We're looking at about 10 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. We have Utah men's basketball coming up tonight at 7 o'clock. It's the Utes taking on Holy Cross. The Utes are 2-0 to start the Alex Jensen era. But it is game week for Utah football. After a bye last week, Utah heads to Waco to take on the Baylor Bears, where they find themselves as a 9.5-point favorite, even though the game is on the road. And as we do every week during the college football season, in case you missed it, here's some sound from the head ball coach himself from earlier today, Coach Witt.
I know I need a haircut, but my mom said no more hats at press conferences, so here I am. I don't know why, but she had that directive. Okay, where are we at? Cincinnati game, I guess we touch on that a little bit. Once again, our guys played really well, particularly on offense. Defense, little too many yards total, but the bottom line is keeping points off the board, and our guys did a great job of that, 14 points, to a team who had been averaging much more than that. And so proud of the way the defense was able to do that. We did get 3 takeaways, although we gave one of them back on the same play, with the fumble. But it was good to see the defense create some takeaways. Offensively, we did turn it over once, which we can live with that. Ideal is 0, but I thought they were very efficient. Ran the ball well, threw the ball well. We're very balanced. So overall, a good game. Yeah, really good game. And like I said, I thought our guys played with a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of physicality, and got the win. Bye week was productive. We pretty much followed the same exact format as we did in bye week number 1. So not much change there. We felt like that was a pretty good way to handle it, and so we repeated it. No reason to change a bunch. We'll be back on the field today in full pads, front load the week, just like we did again the last bye week, and taper down and be ready to go play Baylor on Saturday. Baylor's a very talented football team, I can tell you right now. They've got a lot of good players, a lot of athleticism, length, and they've had some good wins this year, some tough losses. But they're a quality football team. There's no doubt about it. Got to go to their place. Should be, last time we were there it was scorching hot. It should be 70 degrees, which is no problem. In fact, we might even get some rain, I guess, is what I understand. So we'll see how that shakes out. But got to have a great week of preparation, as always. And this team's playing with a lot of confidence right now, our team, and really have seemed to gain some momentum the last few weeks. So questions?
We got Justin's question here. How are you going to implement more go routes in the offensive game plan this week against Baylor?
Yeah, that's been a topic pretty much all season, the deep balls and the chunk yardage. Just got to keep dialing them up, first of all. We got to call enough of a percentage of them that hopefully we can connect on some. But that is something that certainly is, we're aware of and has been a focal point to try to get a few more shots in there. But you got to do what you do best. Right now, we're running the ball really well, and so that's our bread and butter at this point. And but again, sure would help the offense to get some more chunk plays, to not have to have those 12, 14 play drives to get in the end zone.
And then Texas Tech, obviously, probably the favorite in the Big 12 now. How do you see the race for that number 2 spot to get in the Big 12 championship?
Yeah, could get interesting here as we go along. We're not really concerned with it. I mean, we're concerned with it, but we don't focus on it. We're still in the hunt mathematically, as a couple teams are got losses this past weekend. But we just got to keep doing our thing. We just know that we have to win this week. I mean, that's our bottom line. And if we are able to get a win on Saturday, then we stay in the hunt, and we'll see what happens with everybody else.
What have you seen from Wayshawn Parker the last couple of weeks?
Well, first of all, we're giving him more opportunity, which is a good thing. He's had more carries. He's shown a lot of explosiveness. You talk about explosive throws, you also need explosive runs. That's another way to get explosive plays, and so he's given us several of those. He's a really good back, and he is really starting to hit his stride. As I mentioned, I think it was after the press conference, after the game Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago against Cincinnati that he has really separated himself right now as running back one. He's the guy that is our lead back, and deservedly so.
Kyle, Baylor has the best passing offense in the Big 12.
Yeah, they do.
What is the big thing that you guys need to focus on this week to limit Sawyer Robinson and that passing attack?
Got to try to make him uncomfortable. If he just sits back there and has all day to throw and can throw to those, they got 3 really productive receivers, a really productive tight end, catches everything. They also have a really good back. He was a 1,000-yard back last year, and he's closing in on 1,000 this year. So they've got weapons around him, and the offensive line is playing efficiently. So, yeah, he's number 1 thrower in the league as far as yards per game. I believe he's number 1 in the league in total offense per game. And he's got a good supporting cast. He does not run as much as the quarterbacks that we faced this year, but he likes to beat you from the pocket with his arm. And so we've got to find a way to not let him get comfortable back there and just go through his progression. We've got to speed things up.
Kyle, obviously with you guys going into the state of Texas, I know you guys have expanded recruiting into the South and into Oklahoma and just other places with the conference realignment. Just kind of walk me through, you've talked about it a little in the past, just some of the negative recruiting that comes with being in Utah and, with kind of recruiting in different states now outside of your normal footprint that you guys have. Has that become more challenging given just what some of the stereotypes there are in Utah?
I wouldn't say more challenging. I would just say more of the same, what we've dealt with for years. They say, oh, you're going to want a trip to Utah, you're going to, dirt roads and covered wagons, and each coach has 6 wives and all that stuff. And so yeah, we have come across this before, and it's something that is part of recruiting. You just got to, say, hey, come up here and take a visit and see what you think, decide for yourself. And I don't know if we've ever had a guy say, no, I'm not coming because of all the things I've heard about it. So it really doesn't have as much of an impact as I'm sure that people that are negative recruiting would like it to. But we've learned to deal with that through the years.
To piggyback off of that, bye weeks used to be really big for recruiting with coaches going out. Is that still the case, or how has that changed the last couple years?
Still the case. We do a good deal of recruiting on the bye weeks. The NCAA has scaled back how much you can be out. I think it's now 40 days, 40 total. So if you send 7 coaches out for 1 day, that's 7 days. 1 coach goes out for 4 days, that's 4 days. So 40 total opportunities. I think we only have a few left that we haven't utilized. And so, yes, we do it, but not as extensively as we have in the past because of the limitation.
And then with the bye week, obviously rest was the priority, as you mentioned, but how much of last week was about kind of resetting the mindset for this final stretch of the season? Well,
a great deal, and also focusing in on Baylor. We got a great start on our game plan for the next opponent, but yeah, we've had discussion, team meetings and where we're sitting, and but again, all we can do is take care of our part, and that's job one, and that starts with Baylor this week. But yeah, we feel like we're 7-2. Everyone would like to be 9-0. We're not, but we're still in the hunt, and we're playing some good football right now. And, I think we've got a couple good outings the last 2 outings.
A bit of a 2-part question. Your defense has allowed only 14 or so points a game in scoring, which is the lowest since like 1960s or something like that.
Yeah.
On top of that, your pass defense has been pretty solid this year. What has accounted to that, and how does that really impact this team in what you've been able to do?
Well, we're playing well in the red zone, which keeps points off the board, so that's a big part of why we're only giving up 14.3 or 7, whatever the number is, and so that's a big deal. I think that the secondary has played really well this season. As you mentioned, we're top 2 or 3 in the league in pass defense, and so that's another big part of it is we're not allowing, you talk about us getting chunk plays, we're not allowing a bunch of chunk plays, which helps us. But Coach Scally and his staff doing a great job schematically. We've got a lot of good players on defense. There's no question about that. All 3 levels are really solid. And so, just if we got to keep it up for 3 more weeks, I guess. But.
Kyle, Ryan Davis is by far and away the number 1 receiver. I think he's got 24 more catches than anyone else. Do you expect defenses to try to take him away, which would open up opportunities for other guys? And then do you think we'll see more of Smith Snowden and Lander Barton on offense? Haven't seen a lot from them last few weeks.
Yeah, I think Lander played 20-something snaps on defense, or offense rather. Snowden's has slowed down with the emergence of Daniel Bray. He's doing a lot of things that Smith did or was going to do. And so Daniel has really allowed us to let Smith focus more just on defense. I did it again. Jackson Benny has, showed up here and there on offense, and he'll continue to show up a little bit down the stretch here. But really, the answer to your question is, yeah, you'll see Lander continue to get some reps as a second tight end. You'll see Jackson Benny sprinkled in there, and you probably won't see much at all of Smith.
And do you expect our defense to take away Ryan Davis?
Oh, yeah. If they haven't by now, he's been catching balls since the first game. And so, he certainly has got the attention of opposing defenses, but they really haven't seemed to make a real concerted effort to bracket him or completely take him away. So we'll see. Coach Aranda's a really good defensive guy, and we'll see what they have in mind this week.
Kyle, the first college football playoff rankings came out last week where you guys were number 13. Obviously, there's been some movement, and we'll find out more on Tuesday just where you guys are. Given if you guys aren't able to make, the Big 12 championship game, how confident are you at a potential at-large college football playoff bid? And I know you're obviously focused on Baylor, but just kind of walk me through where your thinking is on that.
Our thinking is we're really focused on Baylor right now, and we just know that we don't have any margin for error. We understand that, and so I think it was a nice show of respect for our program from the committee to rank us where we were ranked. But again, we got to take things 1 week at a time, and that's exactly what we're doing this week. And not to, not have a better answer for you, but that's just how we're handling it.
What would you say is the kind of defining characteristic of this team so far?
I would say great leadership. We have tremendous captains this year. Not that we haven't in the past, but fortunately they've all been able to stay healthy and intact. That's a big part of it. And then not just the captains, but the upperclassmen. Because we had a couple of really disappointing games that we had to bounce back from, and I credit the leaders for really making that happen. And practice is as good as it's ever been here as far as the energy and the focus and the juice. And so, again, that's probably the number one thing that has really driven this team and helped us get 7 wins.
Kind of building off of that, the bye week last time, it was big for Devin to get healthy and a lot of the other guys. How is the health of Devin, Smith, and other guys that got kind of banged up during that Cincinnati game?
Good. We feel good about them, and we'll find out more today because they've had 1, 2, 3 days off, and so hopefully they're in a pretty good place today. So we'll find out more today. We won't tell anybody what they're doing, but you get to read the report. Wasn't it come out on Wednesdays? Yes. Wednesday. Do you like that report, by the way? Is that something that's been a positive for you? Good. Yeah. Okay.
One more out there?
Yes, more.
One more or no
Whittingham,
more? I guess
Black
we're done.
Magic.
Thank you, everybody.
Availability report, an exercise that has been very unserious all year long. What is very serious is your money. And Dave from America First Credit Union, live in studio for one more hit. What's up, Dave? How are you, buddy?
So good to be here. I've loved today's show.
No, it's been fun to have you in, as always. So we need to underscore this. There's a new offer. It's an America First Credit Union Platinum Low Rate Credit Card. And by low rate, we mean very low rate, don't we?
Yeah, very low rate. Rates can change all the time, but this is a low rate. And so we have a great offer for our members coming into the holiday season that could not be more timely. That when you come in and open up a new Visa Platinum Low Rate card, we're going to give you 0% interest for the first 6 months.
That's huge.
That is huge. That's not only for new purchases, but also balance transfers. And that savings could get you caught up on other payments that could free up some money for holiday purchases. It's a really, really great deal, and our members have loved this. We've done it in the past, and we're bringing it back so that members get the value out of their money.
Let's dig into this real quick before I set you loose. Exactly, for people, I think it needs to be underscored. 0% financing 6 months, not just for purchase, but for balance transfers.
Balance transfers, yeah. You might have, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of credit card debt, and it could be a very high interest rate
Yeah.
credit card. Bring it over here. It's a low interest rate, plus you get 0% interest for 6 months. And that's a big, big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. Finally, before I say you lose, new member offers, then also where they can get more information. Let's get people to switch over to America First today.
Yeah, we would love to open up an account for you. And so when you come into America First right now, any one of our locations or online, we're going to give you $100 when you open up a savings and a checking account. And that's money that you can use, no strings attached. Go pay some bills, go do some extra spending, or put it in your savings, and take advantage of that $100 offer. But we'd love to have you come into one of our branches and see what the difference is here at America First.
Go to americafirst.com or stop by one of the 87 branches in state. Dave, it's been a pleasure, my friend. We'll see you soon, okay?
Always great to be with you, Spence. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch a break. More coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. All right, final segment, wrapping it up. Going to send it over to Utah men's basketball. Coming up on the other side, the Utes are off to a 2-0 start. and they're going to take on Holy Cross tonight. Holy Cross went down to Provo and did not have a great trip to Provo, which is weird because I feel like all trips to Provo are great. So we'll see if the Utes can keep it rolling, 2-0 to start the year under Alex Jensen. The Utah Jazz are in action tonight. Some old friends in town, Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, Mike Connolly, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Oh, wait, he may have gotten traded. He was on that team last year, but I think he actually he signed a good deal because he actually played well. Johnny Juzang. Man, the Timberwolves just take ex-Jazz men and actually build good teams. These two teams played on Friday. I sat down to watch it, got up to make a sandwich, came back. It was 19-2. By the end of the first quarter, it was 43-15. It accelerated and escalated very quickly, and it was more or less an ass-kicking. So we do have some basketball. Of course, your weekend of pro football wraps up tonight. What should be a good one at Lambeau between the Eagles and, of course, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a slight favorite, a 1.5-point favorite. So Monday Night Football tonight. Brian Daboll lost his job today. It feels harsh. Of course, Malik Neighbors, they lost like their three most marketable offensive players. Unfortunately, Jackson Dart left the game with a concussion. I think Brian Daboll is actually a pretty good football coach, but this kind of felt inevitable. Joe Burrow is practicing. He's trying to get back by Thanksgiving, so there's some interesting stuff there. Of course, Garrett Wilson got hurt over the weekend. He's out for a month, but, the Jets. Where do you think the BYU Cougars and the Utah Utes will roll in tomorrow night, week 2, CFP rankings? What do we got?
It's a good question just because of what they have lined up in front of them. Obviously, the Utes off with a bye over the weekend, and BYU drops with the loss to Texas Tech. This one's tough, Spence. You look at the teams ahead of them. You didn't have any huge losses or teams that you're going to jump ahead of. The real question is, how close are they together? Are they 12-13? Are they 11-12? Are they right there next to each other with the one blemish for BYU being that Texas Tech loss? I think that's a high possibility. Either way, though, Spence, you're looking for either of those teams. You're looking for Notre Dame. You're looking for these teams next to you to lose. And I guess just hope that you're the team that plays Texas Tech in that Big 12 title game.
Yeah, Texas Tech has earned the right to kind of puff their chests out a little bit. That's the best team in the conference. And really, if you've been watching them all year, they might be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in America. But Utah football back at it coming up Saturday, taking on the Baylor Bears in Waco. That's a 5 o'clock Mountain Time kick. Our pregame coverage on the station begins at 1 o'clock with that guy, with Porter Larson. So stay tuned for that. We'll have 10 hours of game day coverage for you. But, Porter, before we say goodnight, what comes our way on a Monday? Today is Monday, making tomorrow Tuesday. That's how calendars work. What comes our way on a Tuesday edition of the show?
Yeah, on a Tuesday, Bill Riley will stop by, the voice of the Utes, recapping tonight's game against Holy Cross. Of course, talking some football as well. Craig Bolerjack stops by the program. We may hear from our friend Gordon Monson from next door on a Tuesday. Our friends from the Fierce Fighting Championships, they got a big event on Friday, so they're going to come in and chat with us in studio. I think Dave Fox is skipping out on us this week, so we'll figure out our 4 p.m. hour from there.
Yeah, Dave's soft. That's all I'll say about that. All right, say goodnight. Fun Monday show. Special thanks to Joe Cravens, Scott Mitchell, and Richard Smith. If you missed any of the sound from the show earlier today, you can check out our website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe to it, rate it, review it, say nice things, and give us all the stars. It actually does help. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Utah men's basketball comes up after a quick break. It's Utah Holy Cross, and you catch it all right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.